Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement seminar. In this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know in the 3 years leading up to retirement, or maybe even the 3 months leading up to it, or the 3 weeks leading up to it, because you're going to retire soon. And you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know? Or what do I need to do? So we're going to get those questions answered for you today. We'll get all your questions answered today. I have organized the answers to your questions in the form of this checklist. So we're going to go down through this checklist as we go through the presentation. We'll talk about what I'll do is I'll help you understand your membership, and we'll talk about your contributions to the retirement system. I'll show you a retirement timeline. We'll talk about your tier. I will also help you get an estimate of your retirement benefit. So we'll talk about the retirement formula, because me explaining how the retirement formula works will help you understand how we calculate your retirement benefit. We'll also talk briefly about considering purchasing service credit. We will talk at length at how vacation affects the salary component of the retirement formula. And then I'll show you our benefit estimator tool that will help you get a precision estimate of your future retirement benefit. I will also help you verify your retirement eligibility. We'll talk about choosing your retirement date. I will talk about the process that you use to apply to retire. And we'll talk about the 5 retirement allowance options that you will be asked to choose from at the time of retirement. I will also help you understand other benefits we offer, especially medical, dental, and vision benefits. We'll talk very briefly about a few other life events, and then we'll talk about signing up for Acera News. Let's get started. First item on the checklist, understanding your membership. Okay, so who is Acera? Well, Acera is the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. So it's an acronym. But really, Acera, beyond just the words, is made up of people. So there's about 90 of us that work here, 90 plus of us that work here. And what we do is we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to all of our members. That's all of you. So you are also part of Acera because you're a member of Acera. And you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and who you work for. So you currently work, or at some point in the past, you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position. And that automatically made you an Acera member because of who you work for. You work for one of these 6 public agencies in Alameda County. So the county itself, Alameda Health System, the Superior Court of California, First 5, the Housing Authority, or Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District. So because you work for one of these employers and you worked at some point, or you currently work full-time in that retirement eligible position, that automatically makes you an Acera member. So what does that mean to be an Acera member? Well, as an Acera member, you contribute to Acera's retirement fund with every paycheck. Okay, so every time you get paid, there's a portion of your paycheck that comes out of your check and goes into Acera's fund, and it's called your employee contribution. At that same time, your employer will also make a contribution on your behalf to Acera's fund. So then we have all these contributions hanging around Acera, and we don't just want them to sit there and gather dust, because we'll lose money to inflation. So what we do is we invest your contributions in a diverse variety of investments all over the world, and we earn a lot of interest on those contributions that you are contributing to Acera, that your money that you are giving to us to professionally invest. So these 3 sources of income, the employee contributions, the employer contributions, and the investment earnings combined, give us this big pool of money called Acera's fund. So then what do we do with that fund? Why are we doing all this? Here's why we're doing all this. Because you are working in a retirement eligible position, which means that as you work, you earn credit toward retirement throughout your entire career. Then at some point in the future, you're going to get to collect the retirement that you've been earning throughout your entire career. And when you retire, you're going to stop earning credit in the system and you're going to start collecting from the system a retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. This is also known as your pension benefit, your retirement benefit, your retirement allowance. These are all synonyms for this monthly payment that you're going to get every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It's an amazing thing. You're going to get this payment every month for the rest of your life. It's a secure monthly retirement payment that you can count on. Let me tell you a little bit about some of the pension milestones that you'll see along your career. And because you're in the pre-retirement seminar, you've probably already passed a bunch of these milestones. Okay, this helps explain some of the concepts, the later concepts, a little bit better by looking at this chart. The first milestone is your date of hire. So that's your first day of work in Acera, or I'm sorry, that's your first day of work for your employer. And really what it is it's your first day of work in that full-time retirement eligible position. Okay, so then for most people, what happens is 2 weeks goes by and the first day of your second pay period, that is your date of entry into Acera. That's your first day of Acera membership. And that's when you start earning that credit toward retirement. Now, for a couple of these employers, I think it's the Housing Authority and Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District. These two dates are actually the same day. Your first day of work is actually your first day of Acera membership. But for everyone else, there's a 2-week gap. Okay, so now you're an Acera member, what happens? Well, you work 5 years full-time, or the equivalent of 5 full-time years, and you become vested in the retirement system. What does vesting mean? Vesting just simply means guaranteed. Once you're vested in the retirement system, you're guaranteed the vested benefits. So basically, you're guaranteed the guaranteed benefits. Okay, then after that point, there's some other date. There's the next milestone, and it's going to be different for everyone, where you become eligible to retire. So this is the first day that you're actually eligible to retire. It's based on some combination of your years of service credit, so basically your years worked since your date of entry into Acera, and your age. And there's a certain combinations that get you to retirement eligibility, which we'll talk about later on in the presentation. But this is the first day that you could retire. You can retire on that day, or you can keep working and you can earn more credit toward retirement, which is why I'm showing most people do that, which is why I'm showing there's a gap here between retirement eligibility and retirement date. But for a few of you, these could be the exact same day. Okay, next milestone is your retirement date that you choose. So we don't choose your retirement date for you. Your employer doesn't choose it for you. This is a date that you choose. This is your day. This is the day when you stop earning retirement and you start collecting the retirement that you've earned throughout your entire career. Okay, there are a couple of more milestones on this, and that is because when you go to retire, there are 5 different options that you can select from, and 4 of those options will allow you to leave a continuance benefit to a beneficiary. A continuance is a continuing payment after your death. So in most of the cases, that is a lifetime continuance to a beneficiary. And so the reason that your beneficiary, so I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. There's the first milestone here is your death. So that would be when your retirement payment stops. So you're going to collect the retirement that you've earned all the way between your retirement and your date of death. And then after your death is when your beneficiary could collect their continuance if you name a continuance beneficiary at that time. We will go into detail about all of that later on in the presentation. And I'll show you how to name your beneficiary, which option to choose, all of that. Okay, at this point, what I want to do is introduce you to this worksheet. This is the retirement planning worksheet that goes along with this presentation. There was a link for you to download this if you wanted to in the email. If you haven't already done that, I can show you where to get it. You don't have to, you can follow along on the worksheet as we go along if you like, or you could do it later, or it's purely optional. Let me show you where to get that. So you go out to our website, which is acera.org. and you go under news and events and you go down to retirement planning seminars. This is where you probably found the link to join the seminar that you're currently in. And then you go under webinar options, click the pre-retirement webinar, which we're currently in, and then there's a link to the retirement planning worksheet. So this is a PDF. And if you want to fill this out, it does have fillable fields. I recommend clicking the download button to download this and save it on your computer so that when you fill it out, you can actually save it to your computer. Otherwise, if you just fill it out in your browser, the numbers aren't going to get saved. Or you could hit print and print this out to your printer. Okay, it's 2 pages. And what this is something that we developed because we noticed that it was a little hard to remember 3 hours worth of information after you leave the seminar. So when you learn what your specific numbers are, for example, your entry date into a SARA or your vested date, or if you want to get a retirement estimate right now, or what your tier is, you can keep track of that on this retirement planning worksheet. And when you come back a few weeks or months or years later, and you try to remember what you learned in the webinar, you have this worksheet to go by. So I will talk about that a little bit as we go along. So if you want to at this point, you could fill out your SARA entry date if you happen to know it. It may have been a long time ago. So I wrote approximate dates here. So you could just kind of fill in approximate dates if you want. Another thing that you could do is you could log into your account on our website and your SARA entry date will be in there, and then you could write it in. Also, at this point, if you happen to have a projected retirement date in mind, you could pencil that in here. And the reason I say pencil it in is because maybe you're going to learn something during the seminar that you might want to adjust that date a little bit. Okay. You are quite welcome. I'm getting some appreciation for the reminder email with the links. You are quite welcome. One thing to note is that I did update this webinar presentation this morning. And so I will upload that to the seminars page after the presentation. So it will be a fresh, and you can go to that link. I'll show you. Let me go back to the website and show you where to get that. So that would be right here on the pre-retirement seminar presentation handout. I'll update that right after the presentation. Okay. Going back to the presentation. Let me tell you a little bit about vesting real quick. I mentioned that vesting means guaranteed. The guarantee comes from state law. It's state law that tells us how to run the pension system. And so once you have 5 years of service credit, which means you worked 5 full-time years or the equivalent of 5 full-time years, then you're considered vested in the system. And that includes reciprocity. So some of you might have reciprocity with another California pension system. When you have 5 years combined service credit among all of the systems that you have linked together, that gets you over the vesting requirement. Okay, so and I think I just answered this, but there's a question. You have 4 full-time years and 13 part-time years. So as long as in that 13 part-time years, you did the equivalent of 1 full-time year, you're definitely vested. And I imagine that you probably did. So you just have to have the equivalent of 5 full-time years to get over that vesting requirement. And the vested benefits are these 3. The monthly retirement benefit, also known as the monthly retirement allowance or pension benefit, that you're going to get for the rest of your life every month. It's a vested benefit. That's the main one. Second, you're going to get an annual cost of living adjustment to that pension benefit, which is a percentage increase that you get annually in April each year. Third, there's a $1,000 lump sum death benefit that's considered vested. Now, there will be other death benefits that I'll show you associated with different retirement options, but this is just a basic lump sum death benefit that's considered vested. Okay, now that you understand vesting with the 5 full-time or equivalent of full-time years after your SARA entry date, you could write in a vested date here if you want. If you know that you're past your vested date, the vested date really isn't important. But If you happen to want to write it in, you can go ahead and write that into the worksheet. Let me tell you about your tier. You are all in one of these tiers. If you're a safety member, you may actually have 2 tiers that you're in because you might have done some general member work and now you're doing safety member work. So it's based on your date of entry into Acera. Let me help you find which timeline to look at first of all. So if you're a safety member, that means you're a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer, and there may be other sworn officers that I'm not aware of that give you safety membership, but then you would look at the safety membership timeline here. Everyone else is a general member. Okay, now there's a couple other subcategories of general members that are called out here. If you work for the housing authority, you're a general member who will look at this second timeline. If you work for Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District, you are a general member who looks at this third timeline. Now, the way this works is whatever your date of entry is, if you entered Acera before the cutoff date for each tier in the timeline, that puts you in the earlier tier. So for example, if you're a general member and you entered Acera before July 1st, 1983, that puts you in tier 1. If you entered Acera July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that puts you in tier 2. If you entered Acera in any case, on all of the timelines, January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that puts you in tier 4. So that's one way to figure out which tier you're in. A couple of more things I want to point out here. The Housing Authority and LARPD have a couple of different cutoff dates. LARPD has a different tier, tier 3. And safety members, there are these 2 tiers here, tier 2C and tier 2D. If you entered Acera October 17th, 2010, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, you had the choice between tier 2C and tier 2D that you had to make within 45 days of your safety membership. So if you don't remember which choice you made, and in fact, anyone, if you want to know exactly what tier you're in, because you're still a little confused or you have questions about it, you can log into your account on our website and it will tell you exactly which tier you're in. One more thing about the safety members is that if you did some general membership, you might have some service credit under a general membership tier, and then you'll have some service credit under your safety membership tier. Okay, so you would actually kind of have 2 tiers. And then you will see that in your account as well. Okay, I think that's all I want to point out about that. So on your worksheet, there's a section for your tier. So you could go ahead and mark that off if you want to. For the safety members who have some general work and some safety work, what you can do is fill out 2 worksheets if you want, or you can just mark 2 tiers on the same worksheet. The reason that you might want to fill out 2 worksheets, well, I'll just tell you how, a little bit about how your pension is calculated. What will happen is when we go to do the pension calculation, we will do one calculation for your general membership and one calculation for your safety membership. Then those will give us a dollar amount, and then we'll combine the dollar amounts and send you one check in the mail. Okay, so that's some kind of pension basics. Let me tell you about some more details about your pension. Let me help you estimate your retirement benefit. And in doing so, the first thing I want to tell you about is how we actually calculate your pension, because it will help you understand your pension estimate a lot better. And it will in many cases, actually help you. Oh, did I freeze? Am I still frozen? Can then go ahead and tell me if I'm not frozen or if I am frozen. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Let me know if there was a piece of information that you thought that you missed. Great. So let me start off this section over. Okay, let me help you estimate your retirement benefit. In doing so, What I want to tell you first is how we actually calculate your pension benefit when you go to retire, because this will help you understand your benefit estimate a little bit better. It will also help you perhaps optimize your pension benefit by making sure that it's as high as it could possibly be. And so I'm getting a comment that the retirement eligibility date and the other dates are still blank. That's correct. So we will cover those coming up. Okay, so let me tell you about how we calculate your pension benefit when it comes time. In retirement, you are going to get, as your retirement allowance, you're going to get a percentage of your highest working salary for each year of service that you earned, basically each year that you worked. Okay. So this sentence is shown in the math version of this sentence is shown right here in this equation here. Another way to say it is this is our retirement formula. And so this is kind of the English version of what this formula means. So let me give you an example and it will help explain this a little bit better. Okay. Let's say that the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service is 2%. And let's say that the amount of service that you earn during your career is 20 years. Okay, so that's 20 years worth of service credit. That means that you are going to get 2% of your highest salary for each one of those 20 years of service. Each individual 20 years of service, you're going to get 2%, which means you're going to get 40% of your highest salary as your retirement allowance, because we just multiply those two together. Okay, now let's say that your highest average monthly salary is $5,000 per month. So this is how much you earn gross salary every month while you're still working. So in this example, you're going to get 40% of this highest average monthly salary as your retirement allowance. So we simply multiply those together, and then it equals $2,000. 40% of 5,000 is 2,000. So this becomes your monthly lifetime retirement allowance. Plus, you'll get cost of living increases to that amount each year. Okay, so that's how the pension formula works. What I want to do now is tell you about each one of these three factors in a little more detail. So I'll start off with the age factor percentage, and then I'll talk about service credit and highest average monthly salary. So regarding the age factor percentage, when you go to retire, we are going to need to determine which percentage of your highest salary you're going to get for each year of service, because it's not necessarily going to be exactly 2%. It's going to be maybe something else. It's based on your age at retirement, which is why it's called an age factor percentage. So we have these age factor charts. This is an example of one of them. These are a few of the age factors. To find yourself on this chart, first of all, you look at either the safety half or the general half. If you're a safety member, you look over here. If you're a general member, you look over here. And then you find your tier. So let's say that you're a general member and you're in tier 2. You would just look at this column and you would forget about all the other columns of percentages. Now, what happens when you go to retire is whatever age you are, we're going to pull one of these numbers out of this chart and put it in the formula for you. So for example, if you're a general member, you retire at age 62 and you're in tier 2, we're going to come down over here to age 62. We're going to go over to tier 2, 2.09%. That is the number that we're going to put in the formula for you in the age factor percentage area. So you're going to get 2.09% of your highest salary for each year of service. And you can see, you'll probably notice that the percentages go up the older you are when you retire. So the longer you wait to retire, the higher and higher the percentages that you get. You may also notice that I'm not showing you all of the different increments of increase, because there are so many that they don't all fit on the slide, because the increments actually increase every 3 months that go by that you don't retire. And it's based on your birthday. Okay, so for example, if your birthday is January 15th, 3 months goes by. Let's say that you're a general tier 2 member, you're age 50. 3 months goes by, you pass April 15th, don't retire. You actually go up one notch in the chart to 50 and a quarter. Another 3 months goes by, you pass July 15th, you don't retire yet. You go up another notch in the chart, 50 and a half. Another 3 months goes by. October 15th, you don't retire yet. You go up another notch in the chart, 50 and 3/4, and so on and so forth, back to your birthday and around the calendar, based on your birthday. Every time you pass one of those dates, you go up one notch in the age factor chart and you get a slightly higher incremental percentage. Up to a limit. There's a maximum percentage for each tier that is denoted by the blue rectangles. So the maximum percentage you can get as a general tier 2 member is 2.43% at age 65. If you retire 65 or 66 or 76, you're still going to get that 2.43% in the formula for you. So you've maxed out the age factor percentage increases. If you're curious to see all of the age factor percentages, you can check those out on our website. If you go to acera.org/age, or you just search for age factors on the website, you can see all of the incremental increases. Okay, so that's how the age factor percentages work. Let me tell you about the second factor in the formula, years of service credit, and how you earn those. So going back to the pension milestone chart, you start earning service credit on this day, your date of entry into Acera. And you're going to, while you work, you earn service all the way up until your retirement date if you go straight into retirement from active work. And basically the last day that you earn and credit toward retirement is your last day on payroll. So for some of you, there might actually be another milestone in here, which is your termination date. And you might defer your retirement to a later date. There's a few reasons that people might do that and not go straight into retirement. So if you do that, then there would be the termination date here, and that is when you would stop earning credit toward retirement. But for everyone who's going straight into retirement, you earn it right up until the day before your retirement date. So when do you earn service credit? You earn it during your regular work hours. While you work, you earn service credit. You also earn it during your earned leave hours. So earned vacation leave, earned sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays. You're earning service credit during all of those types of leave. Those do not count against you regarding the amount of service credit that you're earning, because you are earning service credit during those times. Now, the times when you're not earning service credit are listed out here. Anytime you're on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit. Anytime you purchase additional vacation, which is more than your earned vacation, while you're out on that purchased vacation, while you've marked purchased vacation on your time card, you're not earning service credit during that time. Also, if you sell your earned vacation back to your employer for cash, so rather than taking your earned vacation, you sell it for cash back to your employer, you don't earn any service credit for that. But you may earn salary credit for that because you're kind of getting extra salary. We'll talk about that in just a minute when we talk about the salary part of the formula, but this does not count for the service credit part of the formula. And then you also do not earn service credit for overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay, let me touch on this topic very briefly regarding purchasing service credit. There are some types of time that are eligible for you to purchase. And the general idea here is that these types of time, if the situation was slightly different, you could have earned the service credit, but because it was what it was, you were unable to earn service credit. So then they let you go back and buy that time as service credit for additional credit. The reason that you would want to do that is because it makes that number, that service credit number in the formula, go up. And because it's a multiplication, the higher any of those three numbers, the higher your retirement allowance is going to be. So the higher your age factor percentage, higher retirement allowance. Higher years of service credit, higher retirement allowance. Higher salary, higher retirement allowance. So that's the reason that you would want to purchase service credit. So some examples are part-time work that you did prior to your full-time retirement eligible position. And I'm not talking about contract time or temporary agency time. This is plain old part-time. That's purchasable, or work for the county's temporary assignment pool is all purchasable. Different types of project work that you may have done for your employer before your full-time job is purchasable. Those 2 weeks before your date of entry, unpaid leave in the categories of unpaid medical leave for your own medical leave, for your own medical condition, disability leave, military leave. When you return from those unpaid leave times, that's purchasable. Just plain unpaid leave, that's not purchasable. It has to fall into one of these 3 categories. Redeposits of prior memberships. So if you had a prior membership with Acera, meaning that you used to work here before, you terminated your position, you took a refund of your contribution account from Acera, which means that you canceled your membership, you lost all your service credit. Now you're back here and you want to get that service credit back from that original membership, you can put that money back to, and that's called a redeposit of a prior membership to get that service credit back. And then there's other California public agencies that you may have worked for that you could buy as service purchase time. I'm not going to take a deep dive into this topic because this is a pre-retirement seminar. If you want more information about that, we have a full description at acera.org/purchase, or I really recommend going on the website, going to the seminars page, clicking on one of the new employee/mid-career seminars where I do take a deep dive into purchasing service credit. And you can just fast forward to that section, and the slide right before it will look exactly like this. So you can fast forward to that slide. Okay, let me see. I got a couple of questions here though. In the hopefully avoidable contingency of a strike, does that count as leave without pay? I'm not sure. Actually, I've never gotten that question before. So that would definitely be a question for our call center. You can write to them by going to acera.org, and I'll type it in here, acera.org/contact. Or you can give us a call at 510-628-3000. And and then you can talk to somebody in the call center. Sorry, I don't know the answer to that. Okay, next question. If I purchase my days before entry date, will that change my anniversary date? No. None of these purchases change your date of entry into Acera. What they do is they increase your retirement allowance by making the amount of service credit in the formula larger. They can also get you over the vesting requirement if it's one of these top categories, not the other California public agency work, but one of these other categories will get you over the vesting requirement as well. But they will not change your date of entry. Maternity leave, unpaid maternity leave falls into unpaid medical leave as long as it's maternity leave and not paternity leave. Paternity leave does not count. So yes, that counts as unpaid medical leave. Part-time work after working full-time. In most cases, these days, when you go down to part-time, you still maintain your active Acera membership, and you're still paying into the system at your same rate. It's just that you're contributing less dollars to Acera because you're making less money. But if let's say that your contribution rate is 10%, you're still paying 10% into Acera. Okay. Now, you're going to earn service credit still while you're doing the part-time work. You're just earning it at a slower rate, but doing part-time. So you are earning service credit for that time already. So you don't need to come back and purchase it. Now, if you've been around a long time, like you're maybe 25, 30 plus years, Acera used to give you the option of putting your active membership on hold when you went down to part-time work. So it's possible that there is some old part-time work that is purchasable, if you happen to remember that you did that. And yes, there is a new employee / mid-career seminar. They're combined for new employees and mid-career people. And I'll show you how to get there real fast. Let me go back to our website. This is under news and events, retirement planning seminars. So I'm on that page already. And you just scroll down. And if you want to watch a past one, you just click here and you just click the link and it'll pop it open in YouTube and you'll see my face there doing the new employee / mid-career seminar. And then you can fast forward to whatever section you're interested in. And we do have a little bit of a backlog. So there's a couple more of these that we're going to post this week or next. Okay, so then the last thing I want to say about service credit is, and this is under the category of service credit, is what happens to your unused sick leave at retirement. If you go straight from active work into retirement, which is why I'm showing you a calendar, so your last day of work is the day before your retirement date. Another way to say it is that your retirement date is the next day after your last day of work, or your last day basically on payroll. Also, another way to say it is your last day in active employment status. If these two are 2 consecutive days, that means you're going straight from active status into retired status. That means you're not spending any time as a deferred member. And that means that we will convert your sick leave to service credit. So here's how we do that. We convert it on a 2-to-1 basis up to a cap. So there's a cap and it's in your MOU, your memorandum of understanding. And in there it says how much of your unused sick leave at the time of retirement is convertible to service credit. A lot of the caps, it's 125 days of sick leave is the cap. So what we do is we take the amount of sick leave that you have still on the books up to the cap, we divide it by 2, and that's the amount of additional service credit you get. So to give you an example, if you had, let's say that you had 125 days of sick leave. Let's say you're in you have one of the MOUs where the cap is 125 days. And let's say you have either exactly 125 days or more than 125 days of sick leave. Well, we can convert up to 125 days of sick leave. We divide it by 2, that gives us 62.5 days of additional service credit for you. Now, these are work days, not calendar days. So 62.5 work days is about 12 plus work weeks. It's about a quarter year worth of additional service credit. Now, this again does not change your retirement date. This simply increases the amount of service credit in the formula for you. Okay, let me check. Let me see, there's a question. What if I stopped work but haven't applied for retirement? Would I count my last day of work as the official last day? Yes. And in that case, you're a deferred member, so you've already stopped work, but you're deferring your retirement to a later date. So you're still an Acera member, and you can still retire out of deferred membership. It's just that you're kind of on hold right now, and you are choosing your retirement at some later date. But yes, you stopped earning service credit when you stopped working, and you also stopped contributing to the retirement fund when you stopped working. Okay, so we talked about the age factor percentage. We talked about the years of service credit. Let me tell you about the highest average monthly salary component of the retirement formula. When you go to retire, our goal is to do this calculation. Oh, you're welcome. Our goal is to do this calculation to find your highest average monthly salary. What the law tells us to do is we need to find your period of highest pay from anywhere in your career, also known as your final compensation period. Okay, this is your period of highest consecutive pay. If you are in tiers 1 and 3, we are going to, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods, depending on how you're paid. For tiers 2 and 4, your final compensation period is your highest 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. Essentially, if you're in tiers 1 and 3, your final compensation period is your highest 1 year of consecutive pay. For tiers 2 and 4, it's essentially your highest 3 years of consecutive pay. So in order to do this calculation, we're looking for the highest average monthly salary. We take the total salary that you made during this highest year or highest 3 years. We divide it by the number of months in that time period, 12 or 36, and that gives us your average salary over that time, your highest average monthly salary. Another synonym for this is that you'll hear Acera staff say is final average salary, and you'll see that on our website somewhere in some places. Okay, so let me just say one more quick thing. This is the highest 1 year or equivalent of 1 year, the highest 1 year of full-time or equivalent of full-time pay, or the highest 3 years of full-time or equivalent full-time years of pay. So if you work less than full-time, let's say that you work part-time for part of that, we will find other pay periods to tack on to that consecutive final compensation period to give you the equivalent of a highest 3 years of pay or highest 1 year of pay. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're in tier 2, you're making your highest salary rate at the end of your career, and your last 6 years of work you work half time. Well, we will take that 6 years of half time, because it's all consecutive pay, we'll smash it all together to get the equivalent of 3 full-time years of pay. So working part-time at the end of your career does not count against you when we are calculating your highest average monthly salary. Okay. So how would you know what your highest, there's a question, how would you know what your highest monthly salary for those 3 years is? Well, one way to get an estimate of this is to use our benefit estimator, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And you log into your account on the website and use the benefit estimate tool. You type in your retirement estimate scenario, and it will do a projection of your highest monthly salary. So it will do that calculation for you. So that I think that's the best way to get an estimate of your highest average monthly salary. Okay, so what types of pay are included in the highest average monthly salary? Well, there's 4 kinds that could be included. The base pay is always included. And for all of these 4 kinds, we're talking about your gross pay before any deductions have been taken out, including any healthcare deductions, the employee contributions to the pension fund. This is just gross pay. So your base pay is included. For some of you, there's another type of pay that can be included if you have other pay codes, sometimes known as footnotes. Some of these may be included, some of these may be not. There are like 1,000 different pay codes, so I can't tell you off the top of my head whether yours is included or not. But what you can do is go to our pay codes page, open the PDF for your employer, search for your pay code in there, and it will tell you yes or no whether it's in or out of this calculation, whether it counts toward your pension salary or not. The one that I do know never counts as overtime. Okay, so there's these other 2 categories. Vacation sales and vacation cash out, also known as vacation payoff. So for these, we're talking just to tier 1 and tier 2 people. We're not talking to tier 4 people. And in fact, we're not talking to tier 3 people who work for LARPD, because you're not allowed to sell vacation, which disallows any of the vacation sales or cash out to be included under the way the law works. So just for tier 1 and tier 2 people, if you get compensated for your vacation by selling it back to your employer while you're still employed, some of that could be included. If you have vacation left over in the books, when you stop working, that will get paid out to you at that time, and that could be included. Okay, so let me take a little bit of a deep dive into this topic because people have a lot of questions about this. So I'll just walk you through it. to make it a lot easier for you. Tier 3 and 4 members can take a snooze for like 15 minutes. Sorry about that. Okay, so what we're talking about here is your compensation that you get for your earned vacation, the vacation that you earn every time you get a paycheck, you earn a small amount of vacation. So that's your earned vacation. Now, if you don't take that earned vacation, this is still a benefit that you earned and they will pay you for it. Okay. If you don't take your earned vacation while you're still employed and you sell it back to your employer while you're still employed, that's known as a vacation sale or vacation sell. They'll write you a check for that. Or if you have vacation left over on the books when you stop working and or retire, they will cash you out, usually for all of it. And I'll tell you about the limitation on that in just a minute. So they'll cash you out for it at that time. And that is called vacation cash out or vacation payoff. That happens at the time that you stop working. So if you are paid for your unused vacation, either while you're still employed or at retirement, and that happens during your final compensation period, this is the total vacation compensation that we're looking at, the combination of how much you were paid between vacation sale and vacation cash out, if you had both. And then if you had either or, we're just looking at one or the other. Okay, so this is the amount of money that we're looking at here when we're talking about. So the idea here is that if you are compensated for your earned vacation during that final compensation period, that makes your total salary during that final compensation period grow a little bit bigger. Your total salary is a little bit larger than it would have been had you not been compensated for that vacation. What that means is that when we calculate your average monthly salary over that time, it's a little bit bigger. Because your highest average monthly salary is one of the multipliers in the retirement formula, that means your retirement allowance will be a little bit bigger. So the bottom line to connect it all together is that getting paid for your earned vacation, either by selling it or cashing it out, will give you a larger retirement allowance. There's a limit on how much, actually, before I get to that, let me tell you how much it could increase your retirement allowance by. So these are all approximate numbers. So this is just an estimate. You can't hold me to this increase exactly. But for example, if you're in tier 2 and we are able to include 6 weeks worth of vacation compensation in the salary calculation for you, that will increase your retirement allowance by 3.8% approximately immediately at the time of retirement. Your first retirement check will be 3.8% higher than it would have been had we not included the 6 weeks worth of vacation compensation. And so it will be that amount, that higher amount for the rest of your life. Okay. That's why people are interested in this topic, because they get an increase to their retirement allowance starting at the time of retirement and for the rest of their life. And so you can see that it gets greater the more vacation compensation we are allowed to include in the salary calculation. For tier 1, it's actually further accelerated because we're talking about a 1-year final compensation period versus a 3-year final compensation period for tier 2. Okay. Now there's a cap in the law of how much of this vacation compensation a SARA is allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your pension. And you'll also note that the word must is in here. We have to include it. The law tells us that we have to include it. And the reason I'm explaining this all is because since we have to include it, I need to tell you, just like any of the other, complicated pieces of how your pension works, I just feel like it's our duty to tell you how this works, like what the nuts and bolts are about like how your pension is calculated. So if we have to include it, I need to explain it to you. Okay, so first off, I'm going to talk just to the Alameda Health System employees. What you're looking at is a section of your retirement planning worksheet. It's the back page. It's page 2. For the Alameda Health System employees, you're determining what the cap on your vacation compensation is going to be different. The cap of how much vacation compensation we're allowed to include in your salary calculation. What you do is you go to this area of your worksheet, and what you need to know is how many hours of PTO you earn per pay period, also known as paid time off, because AHS members have their vacation and sick leave all in this one PTO bucket. For example, if you look at your pay stub, I think it's on your pay stub, and you see that you earn 6.7692 hours of PTO per pay period, that's what you would put in this field, or whatever it is for you. Then you just need to do a simple multiplication. If you're in tier 1, you multiply that number by 13, and that tells us how much vacation compensation in hours we're allowed to include. For tier 2, you multiply by 39. So for example, if you're in tier 1, we would be allowed to include up to 88 hours worth of vacation compensation in your salary calculation. If you're in tier 2, we would be allowed to include up to 264 hours worth of vacation compensation in your salary calculation in this example. There is one exception. If you're in the UAPD union, there's a flat limit. If you're in tier 1, the flat limit is 120 hours. And for tier 2, the flat limit is 360 hours worth of vacation compensation. Okay, so that's how it works for AHS. Now let me talk to everyone who is in the other employers, including the county. You're going to look at this other section of your worksheet that says county and other employees. It's also on page 2. And you're going to need to know 2 numbers: how much vacation you earn per year, how much vacation you're allowed to sell per year. Okay, also known as earned and payable. The earned number is based on your seniority, so you probably know how many weeks of vacation you earn per year. If you don't, you can ask your payroll clerk, or you can do some calculations based on how much you're seeing that you're earning in your pay stub. The payable number, that's your employer's rule on how much you're allowed to sell per year. This is maybe in their policy somewhere, or maybe just be a known limit. You can also ask your payroll clerk for this limit, how much vacation you're allowed to sell per year, because I think everyone has a limit somewhere. And what you do is you plug those numbers into these fields. If you're in tier 1, you only need to fill out the first column, because you have a 1-year final compensation period. So in this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year, and they're allowed to sell 2 weeks of that vacation back to their employer if they choose to. If you're in tier 2, you need to fill out all 6 boxes because you have a 3-year final compensation period. For many people, all the numbers across the earned column are going to be the same. All the numbers across the payable row are going to be the same, earned row and payable row. Because nothing changed in those 3 years. But for some people, it could change. Like you earn another level of seniority sometime during that 3 years of highest pay. So maybe you go up from earning 4 years of vacation to 5 years of vacation, okay? Or maybe something changes in your employer's rule. Maybe the union contracts get renegotiated and you can sell more vacation or you can sell less vacation. And so that would make it so that the number changes over that period. In this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation all 3 years of their final compensation period. So this is a tier 2 example, and they are allowed to sell 2 years worth of that vacation for all 3 of those years. Then what you need to do is go out to this calculator on our website. Let me show you where that is. Out on the website. Your worksheet tells you to type in acera.org/vacation, and that is a shortcut that will take you right to one of these these calculators. So it takes you to this section that explains a lot of what I'm explaining here. You click on the first accordion here, and it will open under Alameda County Courts and Housing Authority. And you are going to use one of these calculators. If you're in tier 1, you use the top one, tier 2, the bottom one. You type in, you delete the zeros, you type in this example, you earn 5 weeks of vacation per year, and then you select how many you're allowed to sell to. And it tells you what your limit is in weeks. And you're going to put that back into the worksheet. If you're in tier 2, You got to do it 3 times because we're looking at 3 different 1-year periods. But you can see what it's doing. It's taking the lesser number from each one of those 1-year periods. I mean, it's a really basic calculator. And it's just adding them all together. So the lesser of 5 and 2 in each case is 2. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. If I were to increase one of them, 2 plus 2 plus 3 is 7. So you can see how the calculator works. You don't really need to use the calculator if you can do it in your head. But then you take that limit and you take it back to your worksheet. And you put it in here. Limit from the calculator. This is your limit, your personal limit on how many weeks worth of vacation compensation Sarah is allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your salary for retirement. So then I get questions, well, what do I do to plan for this? Do I sell? Do I cash out? What should I do? Okay, so here's what you do. In most cases, you just simply need to have that limit on the books when you stop working. If you're wanting to maximize this amount, this is purely optional. You don't have to actually do any of this. You just take all your vacation and just use all of it. So this is purely optional. But if you should want to do this and you're wanting to maximize it, in most cases, you simply have the vacation amount on the books when you stop working and or retire. Don't worry about selling any, and that will get you up to your limit. Okay, in this example, this person's limit is 6 weeks worth of vacation compensation. They just want to have 6 weeks of vacation left over on the books when they stop working, and that gets them right up to their limit. Nice and easy. Okay, let me give you a different example. This is going to apply to a few of you. Let's say that in this example, you earn 4 weeks of vacation per year, all 3 of these years. And this is another tier 2 example. And you're allowed to sell 3 weeks worth of vacation each year. Okay. Now your limit, if you go to the calculator, is 9. So this is where I tell you about this additional limit that your employer has. They will not cash you out for more than 2 times your accrual rate of vacation. Another way to say it is they won't cash you if you have more than 2 years worth of earned vacation on the books. Anything above 2 years worth, you're going to lose. Okay. And it's whatever your accrual rate is at the time of retirement. So in this person's accrual rate at the time of retirement is 4 weeks worth of they earn 4 weeks worth of vacation every year. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay. So if they have more than 8 weeks worth of vacation on the books when they retire, they're going to lose anything above the 8 weeks. So you can see that creates a little bit of an issue here. If they wanted to maximize the amount of vacation compensation that's included in the salary calculation, because they can't get up to the 9 simply by having 8 weeks worth of vacation on the books. Anything above 8, they just lose. It just disappears. They don't get cash for it. They get nothing. Okay. In that case, that's when you would want to start thinking about selling. Okay. So in this case, in order to get up to the 9 limit, they simply need to have 8 weeks worth of vacation on the books and then sell when they stop working, and then sell one back to their employer while they are still working. So the 1 week that they sold plus the 8 weeks they cashed out gets them up to the 9. Okay. Then I get the question very often, well, what do I do if I already sold a bunch of vacation? Because I just happened to sell vacation. What do I do? So sticking with this example, your limit is 9, and you've already sold 5 weeks of vacation during what's going to become your final compensation period. So what you really need to do is think about your rate of pay. If you're earning your highest pay in your career, and this is the vast majority of people, and you're in tier 2, your final compensation period is going to be your last 3 years. And really, it's only when your final compensation period is right at the end of your career is when the vacation cash out counts toward this. If your highest period of pay is earlier in your career, then the vacation cash out isn't going to count because that's not going to come during the final compensation period. So if you happen to have sold vacation during that earlier period, then that would be then that would increase your retirement allowance. Okay. So really for these examples, we're talking about people whose final compensation period is at the end of their career. Okay, so what if you already sold a bunch of vacation? Well, what can you do? Well, you have two options. Okay. Your option number one is to cash out the difference. So you know your limit is 9 in this example. You know you already sold 5. That's going to be contained within that final compensation period. So you just take the difference and you sell the difference. 5 plus 4 is 9. So you just cash out. You just cash out the difference. So you just have 4 weeks of vacation on the books. That gets you up to the 9. So that's nice and easy. Different way to do it, option number 2, is you could even cash out more than the 4 weeks, and it's okay, as long as you don't cash out more than 2 times your accrual rate. Because again, 2 times this person's accrual rate is 8 weeks. They don't want to have more than 8 weeks of vacation on the books. Okay, so they have, in this example, exactly 8 weeks of vacation on the books. They sold 5. That means that there's 4 extra weeks hanging out here. Now, by law, we're only going to be allowed to include 9 weeks worth of this 13 weeks as vacation compensation for the purposes of calculating their salary. But they do get to keep all the cash from the 4 extra weeks. Okay. So let me just be clear about this. When you sell vacation and when you cash out vacation, that's all cash that you keep. That goes into your bank account. Whenever you sell vacation, that goes into your bank account. At the end, when you cash out vacation, that goes into your bank account. So don't think that you're like spending these dollars on your retirement allowance or something. No, that's cash that you keep that goes into your bank account. The fact that you get paid that amount of money is when Sarah just takes the numbers and we crunch the numbers and figure out how much of that pay we're allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement allowance. So if you do sell more and then between what you sell and what you cash out, it's over your limit, it's totally fine. It's just that we are going to limit the amount of compensation that we're allowed to include to like whatever the limit is for you personally. Okay, before I welcome back the tier 3 and 4 people, I see 3 questions up on the board. Let me address these questions. Okay, question number 1. If I'm part-time and my 3 years of highest pay the 3 full-time pay from years ago, or is it my part-time pay at the end of my career squished together? Depends on when you were making your highest rate of pay. So if you're making your highest rate of pay now at the end of your career, then it's going to be all of those part-time pay periods squished together to reach the equivalent of 3 full-time years of pay. Because we're trying to, our software will find your absolute highest consecutive pay periods, and it's going to be if you're making a higher rate of pay during the part-time years, then those part-time years are going to be included in that final compensation period. Next question. Does selling vacation back, for example, 2 weeks during time working and having, for example, a 6-week limit at the time of retirement, is that an option? So let's see, you're selling for 2 weeks. Okay, so this 5 is going to be a 2. And then having your 6-week limit at the I think what you might be saying, and tell me if this is incorrect, is you're saying that your limit from the calculator is 6 weeks, and you're wondering if you can sell 2 weeks and cash out 6 weeks, and if that's okay. And the answer, if that's your question, is yes, that's okay. So that's a similar example of what you see here. In that case, you would have received cash for 8 weeks worth of vacation between the 2 that you sold and the 6 that you cashed out. And then we would take 6 weeks worth of that cash, probably from the cash out because you got paid a little more for that. And then that would be the cash that we put as salary for the purposes of calculating your salary. So let me know if that doesn't answer your question. Next question. On the tier 2 example, I can either sell 2 each year or accumulate 6 and cash out at the end. It will have the same effect, correct? Is the question. Let me go back to the previous example. So it sounds like you might be in this scenario where your limit is 6. Uh, and so your question is, you can either sell 2, 2, and 2, like they're, that would be up to your limit each year, or you could cash out 6 to get you up to the limit. And which will it have the same effect? It will have a very similar effect, because you might get paid slightly less for the vacation that you sold, like 3 years ago. But it's not, the effect is like it's going to be pennies. So it's not something that I would worry about. And so I just think for like the ease of trying to hit this limit, it's just easier to cash it out. As long as you're not hitting up against a hard limit of 2 times your accrual rate. Like if you're trying to have exactly 8 on the books, that might be hard to calculate. So maybe you want to have like 7.5 on the books and sell like a half week or something, or just a whole week at some point earlier. But I mean, you can also work with your payroll clerk to, hit it exactly as well. So it's, it's not going to have it's a negligible difference between selling and cashing out. Next question. What if you were disabled for a couple of months and came back to work part-time, where you were paid regular for a half day and used sick leave for a half day? Okay. So you're out on disability leave for a couple of months. So let me just address that first. That doesn't count against you for the purposes of calculating your salary. That's going to be, if you were out on leave during that time, then you are already earning salary. But let's say that it sounds like from your question, you were not out on leave, you were like out on unpaid medical leave. Well, that is not going to be like, that's not going to be considered a gap for the purposes of consecutive pay. So we're just going to forget about that gap, and we'll take the pay periods on either side of that gap and put them together to get your consecutive pay periods. Okay, so now the time when you come back to work and you're getting half regular pay and half sick leave, well, you're using your sick leave, so you're making your same rate of pay during that time, and you're also getting, so that's not, you're just basically getting your regular pay during that time. So that is going to be considered regular pay for the purposes of calculating the retirement allowance. Okay, next question. Can you please explain how it works again? Oh, you're welcome. Can you please explain how it works again if I already sold a bunch of vacation? Yes. You have 2 options. One is to cash out the difference. So you take your limit, you subtract how much you already sold, and that tells you how much you cash out. So you just have, in this example, this person's limit is 9. They already sold 5. So 9 minus 5 is 4. So they just want to have 4 weeks of vacation on the books. That's option 1. Option 2 is you could even cash out more than that, and it's fine as long as you don't cash out more than 2. You don't have more than 2 times your accrual rate on the books. Okay. And then we'll just select, in this example, we're going to just pick 9 weeks worth of pay from the 13 that you see here, and whatever is highest. And we'll use that pay to calculate your, to add to your salary. Next question. Does it equal the same if I sell or leave on the books for calculating the highest income with the 3-year average? So yeah, I just answered. Sorry, looks like you both had the same question up on the board. It doesn't really matter, is the answer. Okay, so then there's a comment. It seems that people who take vacations are penalized. I mean, that is one way to think about it. The reason this exists at all is because years ago, none of this vacation pay was included as salary for the purposes of calculating your pension. And then employees in Ventura County thought that it should be included, and they sued the county. And then there was a multi-year court battle, and the court ultimately ruled that this vacation should be included. And then whenever this vacation pay should be included. Okay, and then it used to be all vacation pay, all vacation compensation was included. Now, then the state reformed pensions back in 2012. It took effect January 1st, 2013. And that's why the limits are more complicated now. It's limited by earned and payable. And there was also a multi-year court battle over this about going from the previous no limit to the new limits. And because it just used to be based on earned, and now it's based on earned and payable. That's just a long story to say that, that's kind of one way to think about it, that people who take vacations are penalized. Let me give you a little secret though. One thing that you can do if you have time is you can use purchased vacation to go out on your vacation and save your earned vacation to sell it or cash it out. And that way you get to take a vacation. You only lose like what you purchase 2 weeks worth of vacation, you take that 2 weeks worth of purchased vacation, you lose 2 weeks worth of service credit. 2 weeks worth of service credit is nothing in comparison to the boost that you would get from getting having 2 weeks worth of your earned vacation included as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. And that is a question I do get. Is it better to take the vacation or get the salary credit for it? It's better to get the salary credit for it. Yeah, this person could take the 9 weeks worth of vacation. They get 9 extra weeks worth of service credit tacked on to the end of their retirement, but it's not going to be anywhere near the impact that having it included as salary is going to have. So yeah, thanks for that comment. On the next question, on the final compensation period, do I have to include the remaining sick leave and vacation time on my timesheet, or I think you might have got cut off. So let me know if there's more to that question. But do I have to include the remaining? Okay. Do I have to include the remaining sick leave and vacation time on my timesheet, or will Sarah be the one to do the calculation? Oh, we'll do that. We'll do all this automatically for you. All you need to do is get paid for the vacation for this to happen automatically. Regarding the unused sick leave, all you need to do is have the sick leave on the books, and that calculation will happen automatically. So you don't even really have to think about this stuff, really. And then there's a comment, so it's better to sell the vacation than to use it. Yes, definitely. You will get this. It will have way more of a boost to your retirement allowance if you get compensated for your unused vacation during your final compensation period, rather than taking the vacation and getting service credit for it. Definitely. I mean, it's not even close. It's like night and day. Absolutely. Okay, that concludes that topic. So sorry that took so long. Tier 3 and 4 members, welcome back. Okay, let me tell you about the limits that we have on your benefit payments. The vast majority of you will not come up against these limits, but a few of you may. The first one is that your highest average month is the highest average monthly salary limit. This means that the way this works is your retirement allowance is capped at 100% of whatever we calculate your highest average monthly salary to be, which kind of another way to say that is it's trying to prevent you from making more in retirement than you were making as a working employee, which it does kind of, but as we just learned, your highest average monthly salary could be, if you get the vacation compensation, calculated to be slightly more than you were making. So as you were working. But the vast majority of you will not hit this limit. You have to work like 35 or 40 or 45 years and be of a certain age, and you would hit that limit. The good news, if you do hit that limit, is you have achieved 100% salary replacement, and you're going to be living a good retired life because you're going to be getting your same salary in retirement. The next two limits are for people who have high salaries, so I'm not really going to cover those, but I just wanted to make you all aware of them. If you have a high salary, you can read that information on your own. There's more information at acera.org/limits. The fourth limit is for tier 4 people. There is a cap on how much annual salary Acera is allowed to use when calculating your highest average monthly salary. These caps go up every year. For this year, you can see the cap for general members is $134,974. For safety members, it's $161,969. And so if you make a higher salary than that annually, we can't include more salary than that per year as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. That's the bad news. The good news is that whenever you hit that cap every year, we stop taking employee retirement contributions out of your check, so that gives you more money to save in your deferred compensation plan. Okay, now let me help you get a very specific estimate of your own retirement allowance, because we talked in general about how the retirement allowance works generally. I'm going to show you two ways to do this. So there's two different spots on your retirement planning worksheet. The first one is getting a ballpark estimate. This will show you how to get a very kind of rough estimate of what your future income will look like from Acera in retirement. So you're going to think of a retirement scenario where you're retiring, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years from now, whatever it is. And you think about what age you'll be in that scenario, and you put that in the field. Okay, then you know how many years you've worked now. You just think in the future, well, how many more years will I have worked? So how many total years of service credit will I have if I retire at that age? You put that in the field. Then you're going to go out and use one of our ballpark salary charts, 58 and 29. So what you're going to do is, you go to acera.org, and from acera.org, you go under members and you go to planning your future retirement income. And this whole page actually walks you through planning your future retirement income. And step 1 is getting an Acera estimate. And option 1 is to use one of these ballpark salary charts. So I'm going to do a tier 2A example. I think this is a tier 2A example. If you click the button for your tier, it will pop open one of these PDFs. And you just find where those two numbers intersect. In this example, I'm going to be age 58 at retirement, and I'm going to have, in that scenario, 29 years of Acera service credit. And where those intersect, I see 50.03%. So this means that I'm going to get 50% of my working salary as my retirement allowance, which is pretty good. So then, and the reason I say it's pretty good is because you'll have other income in retirement, including Social Security if you've paid into Social Security for at least 10 years, and then any other savings that you have. What financial planners will tell you is that you need 70 to 80% salary replacement in order to maintain your standard of living. So having 50% salary replacement from Acera alone is pretty good in this example. One other feature of this chart is once you find your scenario, one of the things that you can do is you can proceed diagonally up or down the chart, because the next year you will have, and you can see the effect of having like one less year or one more year. So the next year in this scenario, I will be a year older and I'll have another year of service credit. So at age 59, I'll have 30 years of service credit. I'll have 54.5% salary replacement by working another year. I work another year, I'll have 59.42% salary replacement. So that's, another way that you can use this chart. Now going back to the presentation and the worksheet, you can take that percentage and you can fill it into the worksheet just so you remember what the ballpark salary replacement percentage was in this scenario that you did. If you want to, you can just kind of get a ballpark, think about your monthly salary, put it in the worksheet. In this case, it's 50% of salary, so this person would get about $3,000 as their retirement estimate. This is just a quick way to get an estimate by looking at the chart. Now let me show you how to get a precision estimate using our benefit estimator. So this is option number 2 for getting an estimate. Okay, again, you're thinking of your retirement scenario. This time you need to choose more specific dates because the benefit estimator is going to ask you for specific dates. You're going to need 2 dates, a separation date and a projected retirement date. If you are going straight from active work into retirement, these would be 2 consecutive days. If you are one of those people, I think one of you wrote in one of the questions earlier, you've already terminated and you're going to retire a day in the future, you would put in your termination date here as your separation date and then your projected future retirement date here. So there would be a gap between these 2 dates. So you put those into the worksheet. Go out to our website, click the login button, log into your account. If you've never done that, it'll take you a couple of minutes to create an account. But once you get in there, you'll find your pension data is waiting there for you because it's in our database. You'll first see this account summary screen that has a lot of your pension data. What you're going to do is click on estimate a benefit. And this is where you're going to put in those 2 dates, separation date and projected retirement date. And I'll just zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. So you put in your 2 retirement scenario dates and you hit calculate, and it will project how much service credit you will have earned in this scenario. If you haven't separated from your employment yet, you're going to keep earning service credit, so it's projecting that into the future. It's also giving you a salary projection, and the salary projection is based on your last pay period that's on file for you. If the estimator needs to fill in future dates, which usually it does, because you're asking for future retirement date, it needs to fill in future pay periods. It takes your last pay period and fills in any future pay periods with whatever your last pay period on file is in order to do that calculation. Okay, now you have the opportunity to override both of these numbers if you want. And people were asking me, how do I see what the effect of the sick leave conversion to service credit is? Well, this is how you do that. You take the projected service credit that it's telling you, and you're going to add the amount of sick leave conversion you're expecting. In the example I gave you earlier, we were talking about 12 and a half weeks of extra service credit, which is about a quarter year. So because this is measured in years, you take the quarter year 0.25, add it to this 21.27634 to get whatever the total of that is, and you put that new grand total in the override service credit field, hit get estimate, and then it would show you the effect of that sick leave conversion to service credit. Another thing that you can do is if your retirement isn't going to be for a few years, if you want to add some inflationary dollars to your salary because you get cost of living increases every year, you could do that. You could increase your salary a little bit and put that in and see what the effect of that is. You can also add hours of cash vacation compensation. So this is if you want to see what the effect of getting compensated for your earned vacation, how that boosts your retirement allowance, you can put hours of cash vacation compensation in here. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But just really quickly, I want to give you kind of like a caveat here. If you want a nice conservative estimate where whatever this estimator is generating is not going to be more than you're actually going to get, then you can just leave all these fields blank. And then what will happen is you'll get a nice conservative estimate, and then when it comes time to calculate your retirement, actual retirement will be a little bit higher than you were estimating, which will be a pleasant surprise versus if you put the wrong numbers in here and you think your estimate's going to be one thing, but then it turns out to be a little bit less. That's not an ideal scenario. So just a little word of warning there, word of caution. But you all are smart, you're good at math, so I'm sure you can, figure this out without overestimating. Oh, yeah. So I'm getting a comment, this estimate of benefit is great, that it really simplifies an otherwise complicated process. Thank you so much for the compliment. I really appreciate it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is show you what happens. You can put beneficiary information in here. I'm going to show you what happens when you just get the plain old estimate without putting anything in the fields. So this is what the benefit estimator looks like. Up here, or the benefit estimate looks like. This is a PDF, so you can save it, print it out. Up here is some demographic info and some numbers it's using to calculate the estimate. This down here is your estimate. So for right now, you can just look at the unmodified option box, and that's kind of the biggest estimate, the biggest estimate for you of all of the other options, if you want. But let me show you how to do the hours of cash vacation compensation box really, really quickly. There is a section of your worksheet that will help you add hours of cash vacation compensation to the online benefit estimator to see what the impact of that is to your benefit estimate. So you just go through the steps. Step 1 is run an estimate and leave the hour of cash vacation compensation field blank. Okay. In this, and in this scenario, well, I kind of have this out of order, but you leave it blank, you get one of these estimates. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to transfer the number from the other part of the chart, your limit from the calculator in weeks. And this is for the county and other employees, not the AHS employees. So you're just transferring that number from the other part of the chart, your limit from the vacation benefit estimate calculator over to here. What we need to do is take your limit in weeks and convert it to hours. So you put in your weekly work hours in here. If it's 40 or 37 and a half, you put it in here, you multiply them together, and that gives you your limit in hours. For everyone in AHS, we already knew what your limit was in hours. And so you can just start here and put your limit in hours. Okay, then what you do is you go look at that estimate that you already ran, okay? And you're going to look at this average salary date range here. This is the date range that it is determining is your final compensation period for the purposes of calculating this benefit estimate. And you think about that date range. You think back, did I sell any vacation during that time? If so, how much? And the whole reason I'm doing this part of the little part of the worksheet is to prevent you from overestimating if you already sold vacation during this date range, because that vacation that you already sold is going to be included in the salary projection. And if you include it again in the benefit estimator, you're going to overestimate and be unhappy. Okay. So any vacation that you sold during that salary date range, you put in this field. So in this example, I remember that I sold 1 week of vacation during that time. So I'm putting 40 hours in here. And then I'm going to subtract that 40 hours out from my limit. And that's the number that I'm going to put in to here, add hours of cash vacation compensation. Okay. So basically what I'm telling you to do is put your limit in hours here, but don't include anything that you already sold that's already being included. Now, if you're one of those people that you don't have anywhere near your limit, maybe you just have 40 hours on the books, and that's fine. You're just going to have 40 hours. You could just put 40 hours in here and not worry about it. So I'm just trying to help you out if you are like trying to put your full limit in there, and I don't want you to overestimate. Okay, then you hit get estimate, and then you'll see that your retirement estimate will be larger because there's that vacation compensation included in there, and you can see what the full impact of that will be. And just to zoom in here, the unmodified option is for right now until we talk about the other options, you know, what you can kind of go by. And if you want, you can put that estimate into your worksheet, or you could just print this thing out and just staple it to the worksheet. So however you want to do it, it's up to you. Okay, that's 2 options for getting a retirement benefit estimate. You have a third option, which is to submit a request directly to us by going to acera.org/forms. I will say that there is a wait. You will go in a queue because we have a lot of these requests. So it could take some weeks for you to get the retirement estimate request back from us versus just doing the benefit estimator like I showed you. You can do that in 5 minutes, and it uses the same software and the same math. So you should get the same result. Let me talk about verifying your retirement eligibility. So you actually, let's see, I have a question. So you're an AHS employee in tier 4. If you have vacation on the books and you retire, that will not be taken into account for retirement compensation, correct? Correct. You are correct. So for tier 4, that's one of the things that changed when the state reformed pensions back in 2012, that took effect January 1st, 2013. And that's what created tier 4. And then in the new law, they disallowed the ability to include vacation compensation in the salary calculation. So sorry about that. So you become eligible to retire some point after you're vested. And it's based on a combination of your years of service credit and age. If you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3, it's one of these 3 combinations that will get you there. And I'll show you tier 4 in just a minute. Option number 1 is you are age 50 or older. You have at least 5 years of service credit, and you have at least 10 years of membership with ACERA. So if you're working and you're going straight into retirement, you can kind of think of it as having 10 years of service credit and being over age 50. But if you're going to stop working and retire at a later date, become what we call a deferred member, you just need to get over the 5-year mark and then be a deferred member until 10 years passes from your date of entry into ACERA, and then you can retire. So that's option number 1, as long as you're, and again, as long as you're over age 50. Option number 2 is, as a general member, you can retire with 30 years of service credit, or as a safety member, retire with 20 years of service credit at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Option number 3, you can retire with any amount of service credit as long as you're age 70 and older, even if it's less than the 5 years of service credit you need under option number 1. So those are your 3 options for becoming retirement eligible. You can retire on the day that you become retirement eligible or any day after that. For tier 4 people, you have 2 different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. Option number 1 is you're age 52 as a general member or age 50 as a safety member, at least, and you have at least 5 years of service credit, and you don't have to worry about that 10 years of membership thing. Option number 2 is that you are age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years, and then you can retire and draw a pension from ACERA for the rest of your life. So now that you know your retirement eligibility date, which is some combination of those, you could put that in here if you want to. If you already know you're eligible to retire based on what I just told you, you don't have to really worry about putting in a date in. You could just, write in yes or something. Okay, let's talk about choosing your retirement date, because there are a few things that you're going to want to consider when you're choosing your retirement date. So this is a date that you are choosing sometime once you're eligible to retire. Okay, here are the list of things that you're going to want to think about. Okay, and we'll talk about each one of these in detail. First item on the list: will you have enough income to retire? So that it's kind of that if that topic makes you nervous, one way to kind of calm your nerves is simply to get estimates. So you can get that estimate from ACERA, see how much your income is going to be. If you are eligible for Social Security, go ahead and get a Social Security estimate. They have a benefit estimator on their site that's similar to ours, and they'll tell you how much they'll start paying you at age 62 when you can take the early Social Security retirement. Or you can wait a little bit to collect Social Security, and then you would get more money. Also, if you have a deferred compensation account or any other investment accounts, that's a good time to, just assess what the balance of those accounts are and consider how much you might need to withdraw from those accounts and how long that money might last in retirement. Jean Hilliard, who is going to do the deferred compensation presentation at noon, is going to take a deep dive into that. Okay. If you want to, this is purely optional. You can think about post-retirement expenses. And like I said earlier, retirement planners will say that you're going to need 70 to 80% of whatever you were making before retirement. You're going to need that income in retirement to maintain your standard of living through a combination of your pension and Social Security and any other savings. So this is purely optional. You don't have to do this to retire. If you just want to like wing it and you wing things and it works out, that's totally fine. Like you've worked here 30, 35 years, you know that it's going to be fine. Just, yeah, it's fine. But this is just a suggestion that you can take a little peek into your future about your future retirement income. I did get a question, is retirement income taxable? Yes, it is, because you don't pay taxes on your contributions to the retirement system. So those lower your tax liability while you're working. So you're going to have to pay taxes on distributions from the retirement system. Okay, second thing that you're going to want to think about when choosing a retirement date that you may want to think about. Let me just put that caveat in there. There are these age factor percentage dates. So this is going back to that concept from the first part of the presentation where if you have not yet achieved the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, and if you recall, the age factor percentage is one of the 3 multipliers in the retirement formula. And the older you are when you retire, the higher the age factor percentage you will receive in the formula, up to a limit. If you haven't hit that limit yet because you're under the maximum age for your tier, then every 3 months that you wait to retire, you're going up 1 notch in that age factor chart, and you're getting a slightly higher incremental increase to your age factor percentage every 3 months that you don't retire yet. So to give you an example, let's say that you have not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, and let's say your birthday is January 15th, okay? So 1 quarter after your birthday, these dates are based on your birthday. So you take your birthday date and you add 3 months. April 15th is 1 quarter after your birthday. July 15th is 2 quarters after your birthday. October 15th is 3 quarters after your birthday. Then back to January 15th. So every time you pass one of these days and you don't retire, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. Okay, so let's say that your birthday is January 15th. You haven't yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, and you're thinking about retiring on July 14th. Well, obviously, you can see that you don't want to do that. If you just wait 1 day and you retire on July 15th, you will go up 1 notch in the age factor chart. You will get a slightly higher age factor percentage. It will make your retirement allowance go up by a little over 1% just by waiting that 1 day and getting over this date marker. Okay, so retire on July 15th, and the same thing works for the other 4 dates. Now, this is just a guideline. If you're going to retire halfway between these 2 dates, you don't have to worry about like working another 6 or 7 weeks to get over the next date. Like, don't worry about that. All I'm trying to do is tell you, if you happen to know what these dates are, don't retire like right before one, because you're missing out on some money. And that money is that's an increase that you would get for your retirement allowance immediately and for the rest of your life. Okay, I have a question. If my temp day, Friday, termination day? Okay. So the question is, if my termination day is March 31st, 2023, can my retirement date be Saturday, April 1st, 2023, and I'll still get the cost of living adjustment for 2023? Yes, the answer is yes. And that actually brings us into the next topic, which is the cost of living adjustment. This date, April 1st, could be one of those things that you want to think about when choosing your retirement date. Let me explain the cost of living adjustment first. I told you earlier that it's a vested benefit. This is something that you can expect every year in retirement. It's a percentage increase to your retirement allowance that you get every year. It's based on inflation in the Bay Area. The CPI is the Consumer Price Index. It's a measure of inflation. Whatever that number is from December to December, however much it increases, that becomes the cost of living adjustment. So if prices go up in the Bay Area 5% one year and the CPI goes up 5%, that becomes the cost of living adjustment. And everyone who is in retired status on April 1st gets that cost of living adjustment for that year, even if it's your first April 1st. As long as you retire as of April 1st, you get it for that year. If you retire April 2nd and after, you miss that year's cost of living adjustment, but then you get whatever next year's cost of living adjustment is. Okay, in my example, I gave you 5% inflation. Well, it's not really going to be 5% increase because written into the law is a maximum annual limit for how much we can increase your retirement allowance for the cost of living adjustment. For tiers 1 and 3, it's 3% max. For tiers 2 and 4, it's 2% max. Well, then you might ask, well, what happens to the extra percentage points? Aren't I going to lose ground to inflation? Well, what we do is we will bank those extra percentage points that we can't give you this year for future years. If next year comes around and inflation is only 1%, then we'll take percentage points out of your COLA bank. This all happens automatically to get you up to your maximum annual limit. The bottom line with that is that if you've been retired for at least a few years, you tend to get your maximum annual limit because you tend to have at least a few percentage points in your COLA bank. So the reason that we're talking about this now is in regarding to choosing your retirement date. This might be something that you want to think about if you are retiring in the springtime. If you retire on or before April 1st, you will get the cost of living increase for that year. And that will be part of your retirement check starting April 1st. If you retire April 2nd and after, then you're going to miss the cost of living adjustment for that year, which you might not want to do because it would have been you might have made more money. I mean, you would have made more money if there's a cost of living adjustment for that year, if it's not 0%, and you would have made more money had you retired on April 1st. So that's definitely something to think about. Now, if you're retiring like any other time of the year, like December, September, July, June, there's nothing that's like magic about retiring April 1st. It's just that we get a lot of retirements in March because people are already retiring in the spring and they want to make sure to hit that April 1st date to get that little cost of living increase boost right off the bat. Okay, so some of you may be thinking, well, what if there's a conflict between those two increases? This might happen for some people depending on your birth date. It could happen for somebody with a January 15th birth date, for example, which is why I like to stick with that example. So let's say that your birthday is January 15th and you have not yet reached the maximum age factor for your tier. So that means your age factor percentages are still going up every 3 months you wait to retire. And you know you want to retire in the spring. So you're thinking, should I retire on April 15th? And if I do that, I'll get the age factor increase, but I'll miss the cost of living increase I would have gotten had I retired on April 1st or a little bit before April 1st. Or should I retire on April 1st? I'll get the cost of living increase, but I'm going to miss that age factor increase I would have gotten a couple of weeks from now once I passed April 15th. Which should I do? Well, you probably already know the answer because I already gave you the percentages. If the COLA is the maximum for that year, which it often is, because inflation tends to be around 3% per year, and we publish what the cost of living adjustment is going to be every year in early February on our website. If it's the maximum, you go with the cost of living increase because it's going to boost your retirement immediately 2% for tiers 2 and 4 or 3% for tiers 1 and 3, which is going to be more than the age factor percentage increase would have boosted your retirement allowance, which again is just like a little over 1%. Now, if you're not retiring in the spring, you can just think about those age factor percentage dates. And then this conflict in even the idea of retiring lined up with the cost of living adjustment, this quickly resolves itself in a couple of months. So April goes by, May goes by, usually sometime in June or a little bit after, then you've earned more credit toward retirement by getting older, by earning more service credit, and that will beat, what you would have gotten had you retired on April 1st or before. So yeah, I think April and May are our slowest retirement months because of that. Okay, the next thing that you're going to want to think about when choosing your retirement date is if you want us to do the sick leave conversion for you, where we are converting your unused sick leave to service credit, like I explained earlier, you're going to want to make sure that you go straight from active work into retirement and you spend 0 days as a deferred member. Okay. The way that you go straight from active work into retirement is simply by having those on 2 consecutive days. Okay. With another detail that I'm going to tell you on bullet point number 6 on the next slide. Okay, so to have them on 2 consecutive days, this means that your last day on payroll is the day before your retirement date. Okay, and your last day on payroll, you can be on leave that day, and it's okay if you're on like a floating holiday, or you're on vacation leave, or you're using up your comp time, or you're on sick leave, or you're on management leave. It's okay to be on leave that day. You're just still on payroll that day. So you're still an active employee. You're getting paid for that day. Then the following day is your first day of retirement. And that it means that you're going straight from active work into retirement. And it's okay if the retirement date is on a weekend. That's totally fine. Okay. So this date, your last day of work, this is the day that you write on your letter of resignation. And if you go through our retire page, which is taking you through the retirement process, there's a sample letter of resignation on there that you can use, and you can plug in your last day of work, and then you provide that to your employer. This day, your retirement date, this is the day that you write on your retirement application. And that makes them 2 consecutive days, and that means that you go straight from active work into retirement. And let me give you one more detail about this. Okay. You're going to want to make your retirement day on a day where you are scheduled to work on the day before, and that day before should be a non-regular holiday. Okay. So you should be scheduled to work on this day, and this day should not be a holiday like Thanksgiving or the 4th of July. Nor should it be one of those days where like the 4th of July is on a Saturday, so it's recognized on Friday. So this should be a non-holiday day, and it should be a day where you are normally scheduled to work. So for example, if you normally work Monday through Friday, you don't want to retire on Sunday or Monday. So you normally work Monday through Friday. You don't want to retire on Sunday or Monday because you normally don't work on Saturday or Sunday. Okay. So that's just one example. Another example is if you're one of, if you work in like a lot of people in law enforcement and healthcare, you sometimes don't have a regular schedule like that. So maybe what you want to do is pick like a retirement week, and then when it gets closer to the time, then you actually choose when you see the work schedule, then you can actually choose what your actual retirement day is going to be, making sure that you're still on payroll the day before. Okay. And that's a day that you're normally scheduled to work, or you are scheduled to work. Okay, so those are all of the things that you're going to want to think about when choosing your retirement date. So if you know what your projected retirement date is, you can go ahead and write it in your career timeline. Also, if you know that you are wanting to go straight from active work into retirement, then all you do is simply subtract 1 day and put that day in the separation date field here. Okay, let's talk about the retirement application process. What is that going to look like? Okay, here are the steps. Step 1, go through the preparing to retire section on our website. You can go to acera.org/prepare, or I'll show you how to navigate there. Out on our website, if you go under members, which is the first menu drop down, preparing to retire is right there. Also, if you go to the website and you just scroll down to the purple area. Prepare to retire is right there. This is a list of things of information that we want you to process and learn. Some of these steps you have already done, so you don't even have to do them. Verifying your retirement eligibility. Well, we just did that, so you already know what that is. Understanding how vacation pay affects your pension. Well, we just went through like a 20-minute discussion of that, so check. Excuse me. Attending a pre-retirement seminar. Well, you're doing that right now, so check. So you've already done a lot of these things, but this is in chronological order, kind of like reverse chronological order, counting down to your retirement date. And so we do want you to go through this section. There is an expanded article on choosing your retirement date in there. There's an expanded article on estimating your future retirement income if you want to go through that. So this is what we would like you to do as step 1. Step 2, set up a ready to retire counseling session. So you submit that form. You can go to acera.org/counseling, and we want you to do that in the 3 to 6 month period before your retirement date to fully prepare. Let me go back to the website. Sticking to that preparing to retire section, setting up the counseling session is the second to last step. And this is a web form that you fill out, you submit to us, and then we will contact you to set up a ready to retire counseling session. And we will set it up for the 3 month period before your projected retirement date. Okay. So you set it up in the 3 to 6 month period. So you're looking at the last 6 months before you retire. The first 3 months of that, you set up the counseling session. Then second 3 months of that, you are actually going to have the counseling session. We will ask you to do step 3 ahead of your counseling session, which is submit your retirement application. And you're going to need to submit your retirement application within the 90-day period before your retirement date. That submitting your retirement application is actually the final step, going back to the website, on the preparing to retire section. So you can just simply navigate to that, applying to retire, or you can type in acera.org/retire and it will take you right there. And this takes you through the final step-by-step process of filling out your retirement application and choosing your retirement option. You're going to select your retirement option, one of 5 retirement options on that retirement application. The retirement application is totally through DocuSign. We just launched that this past January, and we try to make it as easy as possible for you, and I think it's pretty intuitive to fill out. I have a question. If I retire on payday, will my next last paycheck be counted in my 3-year income average? If you retire on payday, which means that's the first day of your retirement, then, because payday is usually the last day of a pay period, if I'm correct. So what you're doing is you're retiring on the last day of a pay period, which means your actual last day was the day before the last day of the pay period. So really, I think part of your last check, your last check is going to be part of your income, but it's going to be a partial pay period, because it will be, if you work 5 days a week, it will be a 9-day, partial pay period. But yeah, it should be included. And then what we'll do is find an additional day on the front end of your consecutive pay periods to tack onto there to make up for that. There's another question that just came up. May I apply for retirement disability if I have applied for SSN benefits disability, and how long does that take? So does SSN disability, does that mean that you're applying for disability through the federal government? But regarding applying for ACERA's disability retirement, okay, great. Regarding applying for ACERA's disability retirement, you can apply for ACERA's disability retirement. There's like a period, I don't remember what the period is, but there's a number of months after you You can go through the regular retirement process, also known as service retirement. You can go through the regular retirement process, retire, and then you can actually apply for disability retirement after that. There's a few months after that you still can apply for it. Alternatively, you could apply for disability retirement before, but then while you're going through the disability retirement process, then you can do the regular retirement. The reason that you can do that is because disability retirement process can take quite some time. It could take like a year in some cases to go through all of the steps of it, because it's a complicated process. So in the meantime, since you're permanently disabled and you can't perform your job duties, then that's often a good time to just go ahead and do the regular retirement. And then if you're awarded the disability retirement later, then you will your retirement amount could change. It could increase, or it could remain the same if the disability retirement is less than your regular retirement, but the part that's your disability retirement will be non-taxable. And then there's a question, what should I do if I change my mind about retiring but have already met one-on-one with a counselor? That's totally okay. As long as your retirement date has not passed, then you can change your mind about your retirement application. All you need to do is submit a letter to us in writing and you sign it. It can be something super simple, like, you put your name and address on there. You say, please take my retirement application out of the system, or please change my retirement date to, whatever it is. And then we'll just go ahead and do that for you. Once your retirement date passes, you're retired, and then you can't really change your mind about retiring. Sort of. I mean, really, it's once you cash the first retirement check. But yeah, you can, if you decide to change your mind before your retirement date passes, you can definitely change that. Okay, so step 4, once your retirement date passes, you're retired. And this is the retirement date that you wrote down on your retirement application. So once that date passes, you're retired. So you can enjoy your retirement. It's going to be freaking amazing. You've earned it. It's going to be so good. You've done so much work for the public in your position that you're just going to you just really deserve a long, enjoyable retirement. So yeah, thank you for your public service. So once that date passes, you're retired. That's when we start sending you a check. Now, before I talk about your first retirement check, let me just return to the worksheet. If you want to, you can go ahead and subtract 6 months from your projected retirement date, and that's the date that you should submit the Ready to Retire counseling form. So you can write that in the worksheet. Now you can expect your first retirement check 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer paycheck. If there are any major issues with your file, such as those listed here, what you can expect is an 80% payment of whatever we estimate your retirement allowance to be. This almost never happens these days because we totally revamped our retirement calculation process maybe like 5 years ago now. And that's why we want you to contact us like 3 to 6 months ahead of time, because then we get the gears turning and we get everything in order for you. And 99% of people, your first retirement check is your 100% final retirement payment, that what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus cost of living adjustments. However, if we do have to issue you any 80% payments, you also will get retro payments to make up for any less than 100% payments until we can, after we resolve the issues. Okay, at this point in the presentation is when I tell you about the 5 retirement allowance options that you're going to choose from on your retirement application. So their names are unmodified option and options 1 through 4. Okay. For each one of the options, I'm going to show you one slide to explain what the option does for you. There's going to be a lot of text on the slide. The top row is going to tell you about your retirement allowance as an ACERA retiree. The bottom rows are going to talk about what your beneficiary will be eligible to receive after you pass away. So it'll be beneficiary information. Now, your beneficiary, that word just means somebody who gets benefits. In the context of a SARA, your SARA beneficiary is somebody who gets your SARA death benefits after you die. So that's who your beneficiary is. And you tell us who your beneficiary is. You have to name who your beneficiary is with a SARA. For the purposes of naming beneficiaries for these 5 retirement options, that would be something that you are going to do on your retirement application. Okay, so let's talk about the first option, the unmodified option, also known as 60% to your beneficiary. And I think I got a question about this earlier. So this option, the unmodified option, pays to you, the retiree, the maximum of any of the 5 retirement options. That's why this is the unmodified option is the one that the vast majority of people select, because it pays the highest retirement allowance. Okay, regarding your beneficiaries, what will it pay them? Well, it pays a 60% monthly continuance to qualified beneficiaries. Qualified beneficiaries are a spouse or state-registered domestic partner who you have married or registered at least 1 year before your retirement. If you've married or registered them at least 1 year before your retirement, you can name them as a continuance beneficiary for the 60% monthly continuance. Now, what is a continuance? A continuance is a continuing monthly payment after you die. So you're getting your retirement allowance every month. After you die, they are going to get a continuing payment every month, and it's going to be and it's known as a continuance. So whatever your retirement allowance was at the time that you pass away, they're going to get 60% of that amount every month for the rest of their life, if they're a spouse or state registered domestic partner, plus cost of living increases. Now, if you are awarded a service-connected disability retirement, this is another benefit of that being awarded a disability retirement, is that that continuance goes up to 100%. So it's a lifetime continuance for spouse or state registered domestic partner. If you don't have a spouse or state registered domestic partner, you can name your minor child or minor children for the 60% continuance, but it's not for your lifetime. It's not for their lifetime. It's a temporary benefit, and it cuts off at some point. It will stop at age 18 unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school, at which point it will continue until age 22, at which point it will cut off. Unless they get married or they register a domestic partner with the state, and then it will cut off. Okay, so those are the rules for the continuance beneficiary. If you don't have a continuance beneficiary at the time of retirement that you can name, you don't have a spouse, state registered domestic partner, or minor children, that's totally fine. You can still choose the unmodified option and get the maximum retirement allowance. And you can still name a beneficiary. Or in this case, you can actually name more than one beneficiary if you so choose. But your beneficiary will not be eligible for a continuance. They will only be eligible for a one-time lump sum payment. It's called lump sum payment because it only happens the one time right after you die. And you can name anyone as a beneficiary for this. What they will get as their payment is the balance of your employee contribution account with a SARA. So that's all the employee contributions that you paid into a SARA throughout your entire career, plus all the interest that we've paid on top of that, because every time the fund earns interest, we pay interest to your contribution account, minus any retirement allowance amounts that we've already paid you out as a retiree while you were getting your monthly retirement allowance payments. So what happens is that when you retire, we start paying you your monthly retirement allowance, and the first bucket that gets paid out of is your employee contribution account. The second bucket that it gets paid out of is the employer portion, and then after that is all the interest that your money has earned. 75% of your lifetime pension is paid by that interest. So it's because it's professionally managed and we earn a lot of interest. Now, what that means is that there's going to be no balance left of your contribution account if you die after the first 3 to 5 years of retirement. So if you did die within the first 3 to 5 years, we wouldn't have paid you out all the balance of your employee contribution account yet. But if you die after that first 3 to 5 years, there won't be a balance left over. So that's the bad news. The good news about that is what that means is that everything you paid into the retirement system throughout your entire career, we're giving you all that money back within your first 3 to 5 years of retirement. And everything after that is this pure, amazing bonus, basically that you're getting because you're participating as a public employee in a defined benefit pensions plan. You don't get the high pay that they get out in the private sector. So you get a lifetime secure pension which is a amount of money that you can count on for the rest of your life. So it's pretty amazing that the way the pension system works. So that's my little spiel about the pension system. Okay, now back to what your beneficiary is going to get. Okay, so there are some small amounts that a lump sum beneficiary would get. Is that $1,000 lump sum payment. Any portion of a month that we haven't paid you out yet, like when you die halfway through the month and we haven't paid that portion of the month out to you in your retirement allowance, they would get. Any prepaid health plan premiums, they would get a refund of those back. So it still is important to have a lump sum beneficiary in that case because they would get paid those amounts. There's also another scenario, a final scenario about the unmodified option that I want to tell you about, which is at the time of retirement, you had a continuance beneficiary that you named. Let's say it's a spouse, and you retire, you start drawing your pension, and then your spouse dies before you do. Well, in that case, you can name a new beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments, never for continuances. The only time that you have the opportunity to name a beneficiary for a continuance is at the time of retirement on your retirement application. That also means that, like, if you're not married now and you get married after retirement, you can name your new spouse as a beneficiary, but not for a continuance. And that's just the law that has been adopted here. So that's the unmodified option. Okay, moving on to option 1. This is the only one of the 5 options that never pays a continuance to anyone at any time. That's not even an option with option 1. What this does is a couple of things. One is it pays you almost the same amount as the unmodified option. Okay, so it's just slightly less than the unmodified option. The main thing that it does is it stretches out that 3 to 5 year period where there's a balance left in your contribution account to 10 to 12 years. So if you were to die within the first 10 to 12 years after retirement, there would be a balance in your contribution account to pay out to the lump sum beneficiary. So people who might want to choose this are people who don't have at the time of retirement, a continuance beneficiary that they want to leave a continuance to. And they are okay with these, very slight, might be a few dollars reduction from the unmodified option, but they do want to, possibly leave a higher lump sum to a lump sum beneficiary. Okay, that's option 1. Option 2 does a couple of things. The first is that it allows you to leave 100% continuance to one beneficiary. Okay. The second thing that it does is it allows you to name anyone as a beneficiary. It doesn't have to be spouse, state registered domestic partner, or minor children. It can be anyone. Although if you do have a spouse or state registered domestic partner, their right to this benefit supersedes anybody you name unless they sign away the benefit. Okay, now, because you're paying 100% monthly continuance and you're naming anyone as a beneficiary, you have to give something up, which means that your retirement allowance is going to be less than the unmodified option. And the amount less is based on the life expectancy of your beneficiary. So if your beneficiary is significantly younger than you, what's going to happen is they have a longer life expectancy. We're going to expect to pay them out for a longer period, more money. So we're going to calculate your retirement allowance to be less. And whatever we calculate your retirement allowance to be for options 2, 3, and 4, for really any of the options at the time of retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus the cost of living adjustments. There is a scenario where if you are awarded a service-connected disability retirement, I think there's a scenario that you can change your option later if you're awarded that, but you would want to talk to our disability unit, disability representatives on that to just verify that I'm telling you the right thing. Otherwise, you can't change your option in retirement. So whatever your option is that you pick at the time of retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life. And additionally, the retirement allowance amount is going to be whatever it is for the rest of your life. So if your beneficiary dies before you do, even though we reduced your retirement allowance based on their life expectancy, and it doesn't turn out to be what it was, what it would have been on average, and they die before you do, we don't increase your retirement allowance. Whatever it is what it is, plus cost of living adjustments. One more caveat I want to point out about option 2, and this sometimes could apply to option 4, is that if your beneficiary is not your spouse or state registered domestic, or might even be just spouse, I'm not sure, and they are more than 10 years younger than you, the IRS has this limit on how much continuances can be, and it might be a little bit less than 100%. And we do have more information about that on our retire page, sarah.org/retire, if you want to read into that a little bit more. That's option 2. So that pays 100% continuance to a beneficiary who's anyone. Option 3 is the exact same as option 2, almost. You can still name anyone as a beneficiary. All the same rules apply. It's just the difference is that rather than paying 100% to a beneficiary, you're paying 50% to a beneficiary. So whatever your retirement allowance was at the time that you die, your beneficiary gets half of that amount for the rest of their life. But all the same rules apply as option 2. You will notice that because we're paying less to the beneficiary in option 3 than option 2, that means your retirement allowance will be higher if you choose option 3 rather than option 2. Okay. Option number 4 is very similar to options 2 and 3. You can name anyone as a beneficiary, but rather than being locked into whether it's going to be 100% or 50%, you can specify any percentage you want. You can also specify a dollar amount if you wanted. You can also name more than one person for a lifetime beneficiary. So if you had 2 adult children, you can't name them for the unmodified option because they're adults. You can't name them for options 2 and 3 because there's 2 of them, and you can only name one person for options 2 and 3. Option 4 would be the one that you would choose. You can name 2 people for a percentage of your choosing. You could leave a combined 100% continuance to them by giving them each 50%. Or if you see that that's going to reduce your retirement allowance by too much, and that's not going to make you financially solvent in retirement, then maybe you want to leave them less. Like you could leave them a 10% each, a 10% continuance, or you could leave like a nephew a 15% continuance, or you could leave a good friend, a 17% continuance. So it's whatever, it's up to you. This one is complicated. There's too many different permutations of what it could be. So our benefit estimator does not calculate this for you. And if you want an estimate for this, you have to talk to your counselor during your counseling appointment. Okay. Let me show you the screenshots again now that we've talked about the different retirement options, the 5 retirement options. Let me show you the screenshots again of the benefit estimator. And some of the options might make a little more sense now. Okay, so what I just want to point out is if you want to make sure that the numbers that are on the benefit estimate are correct, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you're putting in the correct information for your beneficiary for the continuance. Okay. So if you've already named a beneficiary as an active member, like say it's your spouse, which is very common, and you pull this drop down, you'll see your spouse. You may see your spouse in there. So you click that, and then it'll go ahead and it'll populate these automatically. Make sure that the date of birth is correct because some of them are not correct, and that'll throw off the calculations. If anything is not correct, you can just type it in there. You can override what's over in these fields. Okay, so you hit get estimate, and again, this is the PDF, and I'll zoom in. Okay, so now the different options might, make a little more sense to you. The unmodified option you'll see is the biggest number, pays the most. You'll see the beneficiary allowance for the continuance benefit is 60% of the member allowance. You'll see that option number 1, the beneficiary allowance, is grayed out because it doesn't pay a continuance to anyone. You'll see that option number 2, the member allowance and the beneficiary allowance are the same because it pays 100% to the beneficiary. For option number 3, you'll see that option 3 is bigger than option 2 because it pays the beneficiary less, so you get more than option 2. All of these are going to be less than the unmodified option. And you'll note that option 3 is paying the beneficiary 50%. So it all kind of makes sense. And you can see that in this scenario right here, which was a real scenario generated from someone, the difference between the unmodified option and option 1 is about $9. So it's about $9 less in that example. Okay, we have almost enough time. Okay, there's a question. Hang on. I'm planning to retire at the end of March. I have 8+ weeks of vacation. It looks like by then you'll have 8 weeks of vacation on the books. Should I start to take vacation in February to use my vacation time, or should I keep on working till the end of March and then cash out my vacation? What's the difference between these two scenarios? Will any of these impact my service credit? Okay, so this is going back to the topic that we discussed earlier, which is how vacation compensation increases your retirement allowance. What I would say is if you go back to that part of the presentation and follow the steps to find what your limit is for the, from the retirement calculator. The best thing to do is to have your limit on the books. So whatever your limit of vacation compensation that we can include, just have that on the books. Anything that's over that, it's probably a good idea to just go ahead and take the vacation. And then you can go out on a little vacation before you retire. The thing that you don't want to do is have more than 2 times your accrual rate of vacation on the books when you retire, because then you'll lose anything on top of that. But like I was saying earlier, it's always best to get the salary credit for the vacation rather than the service credit for the vacation. Okay, your limit is 10 weeks and you're going to have 8 weeks on the books. So just have the full 8 weeks on the books and you're golden. Yeah. And don't even, I mean, if you can not take a vacation between now and then, it's the less vacation that you take, the more you have on the books up to that 10 weeks. That's going to really get you to, that's really going to boost your retirement allowance. Okay, next question. In option 4, can you list several people to receive a benefit? Yes. So in option 4, you can name 1 or more beneficiaries for a continuance. So you can name 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Just be cognizant that of how it's reducing your retirement allowance. A lot of people will have the really beautiful intention of leaving a lifetime continuance to adult children, but what you're going to want to make sure that doesn't make you make you financially unstable in retirement, because that's a beautiful gift that you want to leave to your adult children. But another amazing gift for them is your financial stability, because if they don't have to worry about you having the income that you need to live in retirement, I mean, that is a really amazing gift. Okay, next question. If a retiree dies, will the spouse continue to get the pension benefits even if that spouse remarries? Yes. So the retiree dies, the spouse gets the lifetime continuance. Yes, they will continue to get that lifetime continuance. I'm 99% sure. You may want to write into our call center at acera.org/contact just to make sure I'm telling you the right thing, but I'm pretty sure that that is correct. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Okay, next question. Are these allowances? Oh, you were asking for the unmodified option. If you can have more than one beneficiary. For spouse or state registered domestic partner, no, you can only have the one beneficiary for a continuance. If you have more than one minor more than one minor child, yes, you can leave them the continuance, and we'll basically take the 60% and split it up among them. So if you have two minor children, they'll each get a 30% continuance. Otherwise, if you want to leave multiple continuances, a continuance to multiple beneficiaries, option 4 is the one that you want. Next question, are these allowances based on the retirees after death or allowance based monthly if the retiree is still living? It's based on whatever your retirement allowance was at the time of death. So, for example, for option 3, it leaves 50% to a lifetime beneficiary, 50% continuance for life to a beneficiary. Whatever your retirement allowance was at the time that you die, your beneficiary will get 50% of that for the rest of their life, plus they'll get cost of living increases as well. Okay, next question. If I put my daughter as the beneficiary under the unmodified option instead of my husband, will it lower my retirement allowance? No. The unmodified option does not get affected by the age of the continuance beneficiary. Now, one caveat that I just want to make you aware of is that if you're married at the time that you retire, if you do still have a husband at the time that you retire, then your husband would have to sign away any right to, I think they can do that on the retirement application, but they have to acknowledge that, like, they have to be notified that you're leaving that continuance to your minor child rather than the husband, because under state law the husband has the first priority. And that goes with any of the continuance options. The question is, do we have a glossary to explain certain words and terms like the county has for acronyms? I don't think we do. That's a really good idea. We should have that. But feel free to, like, if I'm using any terminology that you don't understand, I've been, doing this presentation for 14 years. So maybe I'm not remembering like what is stuff that is, particular to ACERA and pension. So feel free to type that in and ask me, what the heck are you talking about? What does that mean? Okay, so next question. Is it true that Social Security benefit may be slightly reduced because of receiving a government pension? If you have your ACERA, like if you're eligible for Social Security, your ACERA pension is actually slightly reduced. If you want more information on that preparing, what was it? If you go into members planning your future retirement income, if you go down to step 1, there's actually, it shows you the step option 3, the retirement formula worksheet. So if you like to do math, you can check that out. And this actually shows you like what the reduction would be. It's usually just like a few dollars. I don't know why that pension was created that way, but it's the Social Security reduction thing. Like in this example that we're giving, it's reduced by like $50. It's something that you don't really have to worry about because when you do the benefit estimate on our website, it already takes that into account. So you don't really even have to think about it too much. But yeah, there is a slight reduction because you're gonna receive Social Security, and I'm not sure why that is. Okay, let me move forward with talking about understanding other benefits, because this can take a little while, and I think we're actually probably going to go over by maybe 5 or 10 minutes, just so we can talk about all of these healthcare benefits. So to start off with, what you're seeing is a list of non-guaranteed benefits, also known as non-vested benefits. These are extra benefits. The county at some point in the 80s decided that retirees needed an extra set of benefits, including healthcare benefits, to be able to survive in retirement. And so they created a reserve fund that pays these benefits. It's called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve. And ACERA's Board of Retirement administers that fund. So they monitor how much money is coming in and out of the fund. The fund, it's there only, the sole reason is to pay benefits to retirees. So the Board of Retirement has to determine how those benefits get paid out. So they determine what these benefits are and who gets to have them. What you're seeing currently is are there rules to qualify for these benefits? It's based on years of ACERA service credit. So you can see that there's 5 benefits listed here. There's a medical subsidy known as the monthly medical allowance, which is what MMA stands for. There's a dental subsidy, a vision subsidy, a Medicare subsidy, and a supplemental cost of living adjustment that is in addition to the vested cost of living adjustment. And you can see that the last one, the supplemental cost of living adjustment, is the only one that doesn't require any years of ACERA service credit to qualify. All the other ones start at 10 years of ACERA service credit. So the dental, vision, Medicare, and the first level of the monthly medical allowance starts at 10 years of ACERA service credit. And just to be clear, this is ACERA service credit. No reciprocal service credit is included here for the purposes of qualifying for these. Additionally, there's 2 more levels of the monthly medical allowance if you reach 15 or 20 years of ACERA service credit. Okay, so one more thing to point out, that it's the Board of Retirement. They might change the rules. They might change what the benefits are in the future. It's not something, they don't make any hasty decisions. You know, they might make little adjustments here and there. That's what they've done over the past 14 years since I've been here. But what their goal is to ensure that fund stays sustainable into the future to pay these type of benefits out. Currently, the fund is more sustainable than it's ever been. The actuary's projection is high of how long the fund will last is higher than it's ever been. There's over $1 billion in that fund. So I wouldn't worry too much about the sustainability of that fund currently. Okay, let me talk about each one of the healthcare benefits that ACERA offers. The first one I'll talk about is the monthly medical allowance. And it's not just the monthly medical allowance, because that's the subsidy. It's also the ability to enroll in healthcare medical plans. Even if you are not eligible for the monthly medical allowance, you can still enroll in a medical plan through ACERA. So regarding the monthly medical allowance, again, it's not guaranteed. It offsets the cost of ACERA-sponsored plans only. So if you go out and get your own healthcare, you don't get the monthly medical allowance to use for that. We have 2 different medical plan options: group plans that we contract directly with, and individual plans that we contract with through a third party called Via Benefits. For the group plans, it will offset the cost of premiums, which is the monthly cost of being enrolled in the medical plans. For the individual plans, it's not only the premiums that it offsets the cost of, but copays and deductibles. The amount is set annually by ACERA's Board of Retirement. Any costs, medical costs that exceed the subsidy, you are responsible for paying. And I'll show you how that works in just a minute on a kind of mock-up of a pay stub. And then it's only for you. The subsidy only pays for your medical benefits, you, the retiree, not any family members. But you can still enroll them. It's just that there's no subsidy available to pay their cost. So you have to pay the cost. Okay, this slide shows you the monthly medical allowance amounts for 2023. So the board voted to increase these from 2022 to 2023. So these will go up starting, these are the amounts that start February 2nd when the group plan year starts. You'll see that if you have at least 20 years of ACERA service, you would get $616 and change to pay for your medical plan. If you have at least 15 years, you would get $462 and change, and 10 years, you get $308 and change. Now, let me show you what the plans cost, and so you can see how much those subsidy amounts will help you when you're trying to pay for the plans, because they don't pay, in many cases, they don't pay the full amount of the monthly premium. I'm going to show you, and the question is this amount fixed or does it go up change yearly? That is something that the Board of Retirement discusses every year. And so it sometimes goes up, sometimes they hold it and it stays the same. It does have the possibility to go down, but usually what they're choosing between is whether to hold it the same for the next year or increase it. And this year they voted to increase it for 2023. Our open enrollment is November of each year. So we're currently in open enrollment for Acera. So if you're retired, then you're going through retiree open enrollment. We have kind of two sets of plans that you're going to want to think about in these two categories. If you're Medicare eligible, you're going to be choosing between these options. Medicare eligibility starts at age 65. And then if you're over age 65, then you're eligible for Medicare, and you would choose between these two options. If you are not Medicare eligible, then you would be choosing from these four options. There's 3 group plans and an individual plan option. Let me show you. What I'm going to do first is I'll show you the premiums for the group plans, and then I'll talk about individual plans through VIA benefits all at once, since it's more efficient that way. And I'm just going to show you a few details. All the full plan details are in our annual enrollment guide. We just published this. We publish it in October of every year and send it out to all the retirees in an open enrollment packet. You can see a PDF copy if you go to acera.org/guide. Okay, so these are non-Medicare group plan options. If you're not Medicare eligible and you live in the California service areas, which is Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser Permanente, there's Santa Cruz, you can enroll in one of these group plans. You can see what the self premiums are. They're not super cheap. The cheapest one is $843.94, the United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO. If you choose that one, and you'll note that these are the same 3 plans that the county offers, except for the PPO that they just started offering. We don't have that one. Then for the Signature Value Advantage plan, you have to stick to this designated high-performing network. But before signing up for the plan, just like do a search for doctors, and you'll see that there's tons of doctors in that plan. So that's when the county studied it, they found that the people who are in the Signature Value HMO, like 90+% of them were already sticking to the high performing network anyway. So there's no reason to pay the extra money to get the Signature Value HMO. Okay, now the way that the monthly medical allowance works, if you're eligible for it, is, so you choose, let's say that you choose one of these plans. Let's say you choose the Kaiser Permanente HMO and you enroll in that plan. Okay, so here's a crude illustration of your Acera check stub, just simplified for the purposes of this discussion. Here's your gross pay, okay? So it's $4,000. Then in the deductions column, you'll see the healthcare plans that you've signed up for, the group plans. So we're going to deduct $909.74 from your check. We're going to send that over to Kaiser for you as a convenience to pay for your plan. And then if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, you'll see that amount go back into your check in the additions column, and you end up paying the difference between the two, okay? So that's what I meant when I said that any expenses over the cost of the plan you are responsible for. And then of course you're responsible for co-pays and stuff like that. And then so you see the net pay, in this illustration. There's also going to be taxes and stuff taken out. Okay, so then let me show you if you're Medicare eligible, let me show you the one group plan option, which is the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. Now, the way the Medicare plan works, is you enroll in Medicare, and Medicare provides most of your care. But what Kaiser does is it kind of fills in the gaps in coverage and provides you a higher level of care than you would get with Medicare alone. And you'll see that if you have at least the premiums are a lot lower because the federal government is paying for a lot of the care. So if you have at least 15 years of ACERA service credit, it doesn't cost you anything. It costs you zero out of pocket per month to be enrolled in this plan. So you might as well enroll. Now, this is, again, for the California service areas only that I mentioned. One more thing I want to point out is I have put in an extra row here for the 20-year monthly medical allowance, just to show you like how that subtracts out from the premium amounts, the different combinations of premiums if you have different family members enrolled. One thing that I want to mention is that you'll notice that the monthly medical allowance amount here is $316.81. Well, that wasn't one of the numbers that I showed you on the monthly medical allowance chart. And that's because the monthly medical allowance only pays up to the amount of the self premium for the group plans. You don't get to keep the change. So that your premium amount becomes your monthly medical allowance amount, and that makes the cost to you zero. Okay, so those are the group plan options, whether you are non-Medicare eligible or Medicare eligible. And again, you have to live in one of those service areas. So what if you don't live in one of those service areas? Or what if you're Medicare eligible and you don't want the Kaiser plan? Well, you have other options through Via Benefits. Via Benefits is a private health insurance exchange that we contract with to offer you individual plan options. And then you can use your monthly medical allowance to pay for those plan options if you're eligible for it. So who can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan? Well, if you're not yet Medicare eligible and you live inside the US, but outside one of ACERA's group plan service areas, then you can enroll in an individual plan through Via Benefits. So for example, if you move to Nevada, or if you move up to Redding, those aren't in the group plan area, service areas. And so then your option would be to choose an individual plan through Via Benefits. If you're Medicare eligible, all you need to do is live anywhere in the US, and it's okay if it's in the group plan service area for Kaiser. It doesn't matter. You can still enroll in an individual plan, like you can live in San Leandro and enroll in an individual plan through Via Benefits. There's even a United Healthcare plan that you can get individually inside Via Benefits. And then all you have to do is maintain enrollment in Medicare Parts A and B. So Via Benefits, it's nationwide. What you do to enroll in a plan is you call them during open enrollment, or at the time that you retire, you can get right into one of these plans if you want to. And just to take a step back, retirement is a qualifying event, and your counselor will guide you right into one of these plans if you want one, so that you won't experience a gap in coverage between your employer's plan and your ACERA plan. So you'll get right into coverage. So when you call Via Benefits, it's a telephone or online enrollment. If you do call them, you will speak to a non-commissioned advisor. So they're salaried and they're not going to choose a company based on any commission that they're getting. They're just going to help you pick the plan that's right for you. So you tell them where you're living or where you're going to live, what level of coverage you want, how much you want to spend. You can even tell them what prescriptions you need, what doctors you want to visit. And they'll help narrow their 1,000 plans down to just a few plans and help you choose among those few plans. And you can use the monthly medical allowance for not only premiums, but deductibles and co-pays for the individual plans. The monthly medical allowance works a little bit differently with these individual Via Benefits plans because it doesn't come in and out of your retirement check. So if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, what ACERA will do is send those monthly medical allowance dollars over to Via Benefits, and they'll put it into a health reimbursement account for you, your own individual health reimbursement account, and that money will sit there and wait for you. Okay, then over here, you are going to enroll in an individual insurance plan. Via Benefits is going to help you do that, but you're going to pay the insurance company directly a monthly premium out of your bank account. Okay, then once you're enrolled in the insurance, you're going to visit the doctor. You're probably going to pay a copay, so you're going to pay the doctor directly the copay. Now you're out some money from your bank account. So you're going to submit a reimbursement claim back to Via Benefits, and they're going to pay you your monthly monthly medical allowance dollars out of your health reimbursement account to reimburse you. And you can set up a lot of this stuff to happen automatically, automatic payments to the insurance company monthly, automatic reimbursements for that payment. Via Benefits will help you set all that up. And then you just have to use their app, their phone app, to submit reimbursement claims for your doctor's copay visits. One more thing that I want to mention about the monthly medical allowance is that if you are Medicare eligible and you choose an individual plan through Via Benefits, the monthly medical allowance amounts are a little bit less because the Board of Retirement decided that since those plans are so inexpensive, they would have a slightly lower monthly medical allowance set of amounts for just those people. So that's listed out in this chart here. They do study this every year, and they find that 90% of the people who have 20 or more years of service don't run out of the monthly medical allowance money, and it's totally adequate to pay all of their medical expenses throughout the year. Okay, let me just check the question board here. I'm going a little fast because I'm over time. Question number 1, if I retire but don't enroll in insurance through ACERA right away because I get insurance through my husband, can I enroll in ACERA's insurance later? Absolutely. You will have a few opportunities for that. One, your annual opportunity for that is open enrollment. So annually during open enrollment, you can make any changes you want. You can add coverage, delete coverage, however you want. Additionally, if you're getting your insurance through your husband, and that's through like his employer, and then he retires or leaves his job and loses that insurance, that's a qualifying event. And then you can enroll in ACERA's insurance based on that qualifying event within 30 days after the qualifying event. And there's more information on that in our enrollment guide and on our webpage about what those qualifying events are. Okay, next question. I have 26 years with the county, then retire with a reciprocal retirement system, currently with CalPERS, 6 years and counting. Would I have the option of taking ACERA medical benefits package, or am I obligated to go with the CalPERS options? Yes, you do have the option of taking the ACERA benefits package because you earned it, and it doesn't matter that you retired out of CalPERS last, but you had 26 years with the county. That gets you over the 20-year mark so that you can use the benefits later if you so choose. Every once in a while during the Board of Retirement, one of the trustees will like question whether they should keep doing that. And in fact, that trustee retired a long time ago, so that topic has not come up in a long time. But everyone's like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense because, you earned it. So I wouldn't even worry about that. You can get it later. Okay, now next question. Does ACERA have people that can answer Medicare questions? Yeah, let me just address that real fast because we don't really have time to answer Medicare questions here, but it is a big topic. Going back to our website, if you go under news and events, there's another type of seminar that we offer called Medicare seminars and Medicare transition seminars. You can enroll in one. We're about to release the next set for 2023. You can enroll in the one that's happening on November 15th. It's not very long. I think it's maybe a little over an hour, maybe like an hour 15. You can watch the previous one that we recorded right now today if you wanted to. And then you can call into ACERA and ask any Medicare questions you want. But we do during that live seminar, we do answer lots of Medicare questions for people similar to this seminar. If you retire and then you turn 65 in retirement, you'll actually receive an invitation in the mail to register for that seminar. Okay, you're welcome. Let me talk about dental plans. If you retire with at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, we mandate that you enroll in one of our 2 dental plans, but it doesn't cost you anything. The self premium and the subsidy are the same. So let's say that you retired with 15 years of ACERA service credit and you chose the Delta Dental PPO. In your retirement check, you would see $51.24 come out of your check in the deductions column. you see $51.24 go back into your check in the additions column. So it costs you zero. It's just easier to run the plan that way. And one thing that I want to mention about all of these healthcare subsidies, they are not taxable income. So we have it worked out with the IRS where this is not taxable income. This is subsidies to pay for healthcare. And then you can see Delta Care USA, you also have that option. $22.18 is the self-premium and the subsidy. Delta Care USA is California only. Delta Dental PPO is nationwide. If you have less than 10 years of ACERA service credit, you can enroll voluntarily and you have to pay your whole way. There's no subsidy. Vision plans are similar. If you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, you have to enroll in at least the VSP standard plan. I'm pausing because I think I may have gotten the premiums for this wrong. Let me just double check that because the premiums just changed. But you can enroll in the VSP standard plan and it costs you zero. Again, the self-premium and the subsidy are the same. And then you can enroll family members. Nope, that's correct. These amounts are correct. You can enroll self plus one, family members. What happens is, and the same thing is with the dental, if you enroll self plus one, you'll see 673 come out of your check and 463 go back into your check, and you pay the difference. The spouse is not covered for the subsidy, but you can enroll them. So that's how that works. So you pay the difference between whatever the premium amount is and the subsidy. And then again, if you have less than 10 years of ACERA service credit, you can voluntarily enroll. If you want a higher level of vision coverage, you can enroll in the VSP premium plan, but you have to pay the difference. The subsidy stays at $4.63. So you would see $16.63 come out of your check and $4.63 go back into your check. Okay, we're narrowing in on the end. So I just have a few more topics. Okay, there's a question. If I have more than 10 years of service credit, does my subsidy for dental only cover me and not my family? That's correct. So for example, if you enrolled in the Delta Dental PPO family, you'd see $174.91 come out of your check and $51.24 go back into your check. So you pay the difference. So when you become Medicare eligible at age 65 and beyond, oh, you're welcome. You can enroll in Medicare, and Medicare, if you've paid at least 10 years worth of payments into Medicare, the Medicare system, Medicare Part A will be free for you. Medicare Part A is the hospitalization. Medicare Part B is doctor's visits. Medicare Part B will come at a cost. Okay, so the federal government will charge you if to be enrolled in Medicare Part B. For 2022, the lowest, there's different levels based on your income. The lowest income level is $170.10 charge for being enrolled in Medicare Part B per month. What the Board of Retirement has decided to do is subsidize that amount at the lowest level for people enrolled in Medicare. So all you have to do is enroll in Medicare. You have to submit our enrollment form one time, and then we will start putting that Medicare Part B reimbursement into your ACERA check. So you'll see $170.10 start showing up in your check. One thing that I want to remind people is that we don't pay this retroactively, so you need to remember to just enroll in this. We remind you every year in your open enrollment packet. But yeah, so don't enroll in Medicare and then, miss out on this money. One thing I'll address to the safety members is that if you don't have enough credit that you paid in the Medicare system, you can still enroll in Medicare. You can enroll in Medicare Parts A and B, and then you're just going to have to pay a charge. They'll charge you for being enrolled in Medicare Part A. Or if you choose the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan and you live locally in the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan service area, then you actually don't even have to enroll in Medicare Part A. You only have to enroll in Medicare Part B, and then you can take the Kaiser plan. For those of you who have paid into the system, then you just go ahead and enroll in Medicare Part A because it's free. Okay. And this is something that will be covered during that Medicare transition seminar in more depth. The last non-guaranteed benefit I'll talk about is a supplemental cost of living adjustment, which keeps you at 85% of your original buying power at retirement if you should ever dip below that. So you retire, inflation starts happening, you get your cost of living adjustments, and maybe they don't keep up with inflation. And at some point, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you lose more than 50% of your original buying power that you enjoyed at the time of retirement to inflation. Well, at that point, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and keeps you at 85% of your original buying power. So you can never drop below that in retirement. It's a really powerful benefit. And you don't have to have any years of ACERA service credit to qualify for it. All retirees, ACERA retirees qualify for that. Okay, this is the very last substantive slide I have. I don't have more in-depth information on these topics because they don't necessarily apply to everyone, but I just wanted to tell you that these topics exist and show you where you can get more information on our website about these topics. If you are going to defer your retirement, which means that you terminate your employment and you don't retire immediately, you don't go straight into retirement, you defer your retirement to a later date, it's a good idea to read our page about deferred retirement. So acera.org/deferred. There's a few things you want to know. We also have, in addition to the death benefits offered to beneficiaries of retirees who die, we also have benefits offered to beneficiaries of ACERA members who die before retirement. Those are listed out on our death benefits page at acera.org/death. I already mentioned our divorce or domestic partnership dissolution page, acera.org/divorce. Go ahead and check that information out if you're considering divorce or domestic partnership dissolution, because there is very helpful information there. Disability retirement exists. So this is something that you can apply for if you become permanently disabled and you cannot perform your job duties. And I did give out some details about this a little bit earlier, but it is kind of a long process. So you can go ahead and do the regular retirement and then do the disability retirement side by side, and go ahead and retire through the regular retirement. Check out our disability retirement page for more information. If you're going to work after retirement and you're going to work for anywhere but one of ACERA 6 participating employers, that's great. You can do that and we don't care. We're going to consider you an ACERA retiree. We're going to pay you your monthly retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. Now, if you do want to come back to work for one of our 6 participating employers, like you want to come back and work for your current employer, there are some restrictions on that you're going to want to check out on that page. Finally, if you relocate after retirement, just go ahead and fill out our address change form. That helps us continue to send you our annual report, any official correspondence, and our open enrollment packet every year. Go ahead and sign up for ACERA News. If you want, we hardly send out any news, but we only send out important stuff. Once you retire, we're going to automatically subscribe you anyway. So you can do that at acera.org/subscribe. And again, if you have more questions, feel free to contact us at any time. Now, I'm about to turn it over to Gene Hilliard to do the deferred compensation presentation. I will hang out after his presentation to answer any more additional questions that you all have about ACERA, and Gene will be there to answer any additional questions about the deferred compensation program. And feel free, this is going to be like really excellent information about the deferred compensation program, even if you don't have a 457B account. It might be a good idea to stick around and see what he has to say, because you can still open one and you can do some catch-up payments. But if you do want to rejoin later, feel free to do that at 12:45. And yeah, thanks for all the thanks in the Q&A. You are totally welcome. Okay, with that, Gene, are you there?